Never give in. Never, never, never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense. Never yield to force. Never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
This country can't be knocked out with one punch. We get right back up again, and when we do, the world's going to hear the roar of our engines.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
You do your work, and we will do our bit.
Republic. I like the sound of it. It means people can live free, talk free, go or come by or sell, be drunk or sober, however they choose.
Are you ready to be who you are?
No poetry, just a straight answer.
The government has deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace.
We are men of the hood, Matty, now at your expense.
But there's no both sides anymore. They're just trying to wreck our goddamn country. It's time for you younger guys to take over.
You meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
If you guys don't start thinking as men, we're gonna have a lousy country.
Here we go.
For the crimes of incitement to cause unrest, I declare to be an outlaw.
All right, everybody, it's the Outlaw Radio Network for the 6th of October, 2024. Listen, I know we got a guest in studio. I know we got a full show ahead. I know we got hurricane coverage and the Bible ordered into schools in Oklahoma, but only Trump's Bible will work. And we'll talk about all that stuff later. But before we do that, I just got to say, go Dogs. J. Andrew Kennedy, if you're listening to us in Michigan, what happened to your Wolverines yesterday? Oh, I know. You got your asses handed to you by Husky Nation. Sorry, life sucks. Buy a helmet. The only reason I'm doing this on the show now is because I sent him a message yesterday after the game. I'm like, J. Andrew Kennedy, who won the game? I didn't see. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. So we're going to talk about it now. Go Dogs. Go Dogs. Bow down to Washington. Okay? Bow down.
You do
Bow
know.
down.
You do know that we're not going to see J. Andrew Kennedy in the chat tonight.
Oh, we will. He'll be here.
No,
He'll be here.
I bet he doesn't show up.
All right. Had to get that out of the way. If J. Andrew Kennedy's here later, we'll keep an eye open for him. But how about those Huskies, man? That was a great game yesterday. And I'm never going to talk about what happened to the Seahawks today because I don't believe in talking about things that never happened. I am not a member of the Trump administration. I shall not talk about things that never happened. All right.
Hey,
K-Dog.
Hey, Seahawks. Look at our 101-yard rumble.
That was
Giants.
a great.
Giants.
Yeah.
Hold my beer.
That's right. K-Dog, Black Tom, Trojo in studio. Hello, Trojo. Lori, the CEO, is off camera as always. Bob Ross is running the boards. DGD's around here somewhere. Paul will be here when Paul gets here. He's on his way in. But he'll be along when he gets here. However, for the first time in studio, we have never talked to him before, although we've had some nice chats before the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Lance Byrd, running for state senate in the 23rd district up on the north end of Kitsap County. Lance, man, thanks for coming in.
I appreciate you having me.
Thanks for joining us. You can rearrange that microphone however is most comfortable for you. Just make sure you talk right into it. It's sensitive.
All right.
So you are the Republican nominee.
Yes.
For the, you got a great radio voice, by the way.
I've heard that.
Yeah, you got a good deep radio. This politics thing doesn't ever work out. I'm always looking to replace Paul with another conservative.
It's better than mine.
So I guess, for people that have not, I'm not in your district for one, I'm in the 26th, but for people that are not familiar with who Lance Byrd is, why he's running, all of that, why don't you give the listeners some background to start with?
So I've lived in Washington State most of my life, all but 2 of it in Texas, 2 years of it.
Best 2 years of your life was in Texas?
Sorry. It wasn't bad, even though it was El Paso. Some people don't consider that Texas, but
no,
it was an all right place. Grew up in the Ballard area, went to Ballard High School, went to North Seattle College, had great friends, had great parents. It was good.
Yeah. What makes you want to enter the wood chipper that is politics?
Ooh, boy, there's a lot there. That's a big question.
We got an hour with you, man. Take as much time as you need.
A lot of it comes down to policy and direction.
Okay.
I am not happy with the state of how crime has basically, I think, gotten out of control or out of hand, and certainly has the potential to get worse. I'm not happy with our education system. Many people in my circles, they will not send their kids to school. They are very concerned about what their children are being exposed to. Gas taxes, that's hurting a lot of people, particularly in Bremerton. We got a medium income of about 68,000, and it hurts. It hurts a lot of them, especially when they're trying to rent. They're renting, and 1 or 2 bedroom apartments are looking at $2,100 a month. That just doesn't leave a lot of room for really anything else, and they're hurting. And I just felt I had to do something about that.
Okay, so let's break into some of these issues first. The most important question of all the questions I'm going to ask you tonight: Huskies or Cougars?
I grew up with the Huskies.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Tom. Life sucks. Something else a libertarian didn't win. Okay, so real questions.
Relentless on this libertarian thing lately.
I am, yeah. It's a new thing.
I have a bit of a libertarian bent, so I'm with you.
Most people's common sense do.
Yeah. Let's break into this stuff. I think the first thing you talked about was crime. Obviously the crime rates in the state have arguably, depending whose numbers you use, the Democrats poo-poo it a little bit. The Republicans say the numbers are huge. But if you look at the numbers across the board, we've seen an uptick in violent crime. We've seen an uptick in property crime. We've seen an uptick in crime across the board. What do you equate the uptick to? Because some people will say, well, this is just people got out of COVID and lost their minds. They were stuck in the houses for 2 years and they get out of the house and they lose their minds. Is it about Democrat policies? Is it about law enforcement? What's caused the upkick, and then how do you fix it?
From my perspective, a lot of this started after the George Floyd incident, and there was a lot of issues around policing. People had concerns about the policies, and there were a number of policies or bills passed in the state legislature that limited the use of force, limited the use or being able to pursue people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that went overboard. Particularly, we can argue about the use of force one, but particularly the pursuit one.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I believe that emboldened many criminals to think, oh, well, I just don't have to stop. I could just keep on going. And I realized the counter argument that people were concerned about, police initiating changes and then there being an accident and people getting killed. I get that. But we don't have a perfect society. We don't have perfect systems. Sometimes bad things happen. But we cannot have a society that does not function where criminals think that they can just get away with anything and just run off.
So some Democrats will say, yeah, but we were able to loosen that. So we've allowed a little more leeway in pursuit. Do you not believe they've done enough then?
No. So I went on a ride with the Bremerton Police Department, and even with the initiative passed, and a lot of Republicans worked very hard to get that passed. And I'm afraid to say that, unfortunately, there's a section in there that leaves a lot of ambiguity for police officers, and many departments still will not pursue because they feel like there's going to be lawsuits or liability that they're just not willing to accept. So all but the most extreme situations, they still let them go.
I know I was with my 14, I think she was 14 at the time. We were driving on Bethel here in Port Orchard and nearly got head on with somebody fleeing from the cops. So I think I had to change my boxers after that. I think I literally wet myself. It's very, is there a way? I mean, you said we don't have perfect systems.
Right.
Is there something that has to be restricted with that respect, or do we leave that up to the individual officers and grant them some type of immunity, or how do you envision that?
I think we have to offer a good faith immunity, or not necessarily full qualified immunity. I have some issues with that too, but a good faith immunity.
Okay.
And if an officer is working in good faith, I mean, after all, we give them a badge, we give them a gun. That should be a very high judgment individual that has both of those items. So now to be able to say, well, maybe you can, maybe you can't go chase. If they're rolling through a school zone, that might be questionable.
Yeah.
If they're rolling down the highway, they call ahead and see if they can get back up and help and get this individual. By all means, yes. If the officer comes to the determination that other lives, they shouldn't be punished for not pursuing, but they should still have the ability to pursue. Criminals need to have a bit of fear. I mean, when the lights come on, I pull over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I expect that if I decide to flee, that used to be called felony flight.
Yeah.
And again, you can't have a society function properly if people think that they can break the law and just flee.
The other side of this discussion, you mentioned kind of in the aftermath of the George Floyd and the concerns about police overuse of force and all of that.
Right.
So that I feel like it's a weird gap to bridge, right? on one hand, you need officers to be responsible in their application of force.
Yes.
But on the other hand, you also have to realize that officers are put in a really wonky spot
Yes.
without a lot of time to think about it. They're not trained as mental health professionals. That's a whole different conversation. But they're not trained as mental health professionals. So we're kind of thrusting cops into a situation where they got to respond really quick to a situation they're probably not completely trained enough to do when dealing with somebody who's mentally ill or having a manic episode or something like that. And then we're holding cops to a standard that maybe they haven't been trained enough in to be held to a standard. How do we bridge the gap into those? Is it about more training? Is it about bringing in mental care workers? Is it about any kind of immunity? Like, how do we best serve the communities while making sure the cops are positioned well?
I obviously believe that we definitely need more funding and more help in the mental health sector. I mean, you can see it in the streets. There are people wandering around aimless, and some of them are judged not even be able to stand trial. And the cops, literally, at least in Bremerton, they know these people by name, and they don't arrest them. From what I observed when I was driving around with them, is that they were very sensitive to people with mental health issues. There wasn't this, we're just gonna, haul them off to jail. It was like, we'd like to get them help. So I think the idea that just police are there to, arrest you and take you off to jail. No, that is not what I got out of my ride along with the police. Not at all. It was, they very much cared about this community, or at least the Bremerton community. And I'm sure, but where I was going with this is, there's a lot, they want to help. They want to be in a position to help, but we don't have facilities to even take these people, even if they wanted to help them. So they end up releasing them. And then they're just right back out on the streets again. And neither they nor I see that as compassion.
Yeah. Are there things that the legislature that again, you're running for Senate? By the way, if you want to find out more, go to Lance Byrd, BYRD, lancebyrd.com. And we'll ask some of the questions off of his site as well about some things he's passionate about. But are there things at the Senate, if you were elected as a senator, are there things you would push for or ask the legislature to do as far as giving officers or the courts more power to deal with some of these mental health issues? And if so, do you have an idea kind of what kind of proposals you would have to help deal with those folks that are on the streets dealing with this, with the mental health issues?
Well, okay. Well, let's back up a little bit there first. You asked what I would do in the Senate, and one of the first things I would do is like this good faith immunity. A lot of officers are actually very afraid of going to prison for, again, acting in good faith and possibly making a mistake. I mean, they're human. They're not perfect people. The question is, what did they know? When did they know it? How did they act? And would a reasonable person see this? And how can we get to that determination? One of my proposals would be to use citizen review boards.
I was just about to ask. So how do you determine the good faith part of that? So a citizen review board, not the department, not a prosecutor, but
I would want to see that made up about half law enforcement and half citizens. So that way you get perspective on both sides and adjudicate the reasonableness at that point instead of dragging it out or possible. I mean, if you have an officer that's actually acted malicious, of course we want to prosecute them. Of course, if they've used their gun in bad faith and they've literally murdered somebody, obviously we want them to go to jail and prison and be tried. But if the information that they had at the time, they thought, somebody was in danger, the person was reckless, or they're pointing a weapon at them, obviously the officer has a right to defend themselves, and they also have the duty to protect society from these individuals. And to twist that around or get a lot of politics involved and no, I think that worries a lot of officers, and it makes it really difficult to really keep the good ones.
Can you be specific in the makeup of that when that gets put through, as far as here's who we want? Because what worries me about citizen review board specifically is who picks the citizens that are on the board, right? If you're allowing a governor or a mayor or a city council, there can be a lot of political favors played into that, right? I mean, who are they picking that has an agenda, right? The left is going to probably pick somebody who believes in what the left believes, and the right are going to pick somebody who believes what the right believes. Is there a way that if you were to propose a bill like that, you can put specifics in there that say how you want, I don't know what that would look like, but how you pick people for such a board to ensure you're getting a good demographic cross-representation. You're not getting people with a lifetime of political experience. You're actually getting homegrown people off the streets in some cases that are in these communities that are impacted.
How about a jury pool?
Yeah, you could. Oh, that would be a great idea. I hadn't even thought about a jury pool. That's a good idea. Instead of getting a jury summons notice, you get the. Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, I'm liking you more all the time. The other thing I wanted to ask you about before we get off the the line, and we're going to check in the chat in a little bit for questions from the Yahoos that are out there. Actually two other questions. One's about body cams. I firmly believe that every officer in the state of Washington should be wearing a body cam.
Agree.
Can the state, well, let me rephrase this. The state should the state do more to finance so that all these departments, even the smaller ones that can't afford it, are able to then get those body cameras, and should the state mandate that as a state?
From what I, from what I've learned about this and talking with some of the officers, they feel it protects them.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I just want to be clear. So you'd be in favor of some state mandate to all departments in the state. Your cops need to have a body cam on, and in conjunction with that, if the state's going to require it, the state better help pay for it.
It protects both parties.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with you. The other thing I have in regards to law, this is a little bit different, but we've talked on the show a lot the last couple of weeks about mandatory sentencing. And one of the things that I have wondered about with mandatory sentencing is our mandatory sentencing reasonable, and is it fair? We've had some people in chat that have talked about we need to bring back parole boards. And I have said on the show that even though I'm not all for letting out violently sexual predators, I think the civil commitment law is unconstitutional. And I know the courts ruled and all of that, but I don't know how you can give somebody, here's your prison time, serve your prison time. You've done what's mandated by the court, but we're still not going to let you out. That seems to me to be somehow unconstitutional. And I'm not advocating to release them, but the question is, if the law is not set up in a way that adequately punishes them,
we should change the law.
Then should we just change the law? Should we
Yes.
have stronger sentencing guidelines? Do you have a thought?
Yeah, I mean, just as you said, I mean, if these people are truly dangerous, then the law should be changed to reflect, and we would hope, and I understand why we have mandatory sentencing laws is because what we're basically saying is we don't trust judges.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trusting them to basically put in, and then again, who puts in judges? Well, usually they're appointed by the governor or they're elected.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people need to get a bit more involved in that. In other words, do you have the right judge? Do you have the right person, sitting on that bench to make these decisions? And so
let me interrupt. Is it wonky to you that we're asking the citizens of the state to vote for judges when most citizens of the state wouldn't know the law from a hole in the ground? Like the nuances of the law from a hole in the ground, but we're still asking them, well, can you pick the right judge?
Most people have no idea. I mean, even if you look at the voter's guide, you really have no idea. And usually they're looking for another source. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's actually initiated to go and look to see if, who this person is and who supports them. You still don't know anything. So it does question that, I mean, normally I'd like to say power to the people and all this type of thing, but yeah, I could be convinced that maybe they need to be appointed by the governor or, mayor if it's a
county commissioners or something
along those lines,
something representative of the community.
Where they could actually, hold a hearing, or they can, interview them,
Mm-hmm.
and really get to know who they are and make that decision. I mean, that is why we have elected leaders, is to do those types of jobs. So yeah, it wouldn't take much to convince me to consider not electing judges.
Yeah, it just seems wonky. Like, I won't vote for judges on my ballot because I'm intellectually honest enough with myself to know that I don't know what person A or person B, like what's the difference between the two. I would think that the law should be the law, but I know that it's not really that way. But I don't know enough about them. I'm not going to vote for either one of them because I don't know who I'm voting for. Okay, but we were talking before, and I interrupted you. I'm sorry for that. So you talked about how, they basically decided that we don't trust the judges, so we're going to put these sentencing guidelines in place.
That's how I view it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what that tells me, is that we don't trust judges to prescribe the right punishment or to protect society. So instead, us, the legislators are going to take the initiative, and then we're going to insist on it. Well, the problem with that is now you've created this blanket, policy that may not necessarily be justice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we're going to put somebody on the bench, just like if we give a cop a gun and a badge, they need to be high judgment individuals. I would expect a judge to be the same. I know the reality is different, but the expectation should be there.
Okay. And then again, the question about parole boards and things like that. Do you have any thought on that either way? I mean, I know we don't currently have them now, but other states do. And some people have said that they think it would be a good idea for Washington.
I think a parole board, in other words, you're talking about for like early release and actually put people out on parole.
Yeah. So you have a longer sentencing guideline to give them, but then you can release them out earlier if you feel like that they've undertaken treatment or they've done good things, or I don't
found God, something
right. that worked for him.
Yeah. I think I would be in favor of that, because again, what we are after is justice, not just a full blanket prescription, one size fits all. I don't buy that.
Okay, fair enough. We are. Well, let me ask this question really quick. So you're running against Drew Hansen. He's the Democrat incumbent up on the north end. I want to talk about him a lot, but I want to talk about you. What are you going to do different than what Drew's done? Because Drew's been up there for a while. So what do you bring to the table that Drew is not doing currently, or what's going to set you apart?
Well, one, I'm not a lawyer.
Fair enough.
My background is technical operations, program management.
Mm-hmm.
I work with influence. I don't have direct reports. So my day job, I'm handed a lot of very different complex programs, processes, and often have to apply some sort of technical solution or process solution to fix that. I think that's a very different job than what a litigator does.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, Washington State has a lot of what I would call operational issues. I include crime with that, or law enforcement, particularly our ferries. There's all kinds of questions going on.
We'll talk
there.
about the ferries in a minute.
So we got that. I would have not voted in 2021 for some of the crime bills, or from some of the restrictions on use of force, or with the here we go.
All right. Yeah.
Maybe.
Phil, would you go ahead and take us to break really quick, and we're gonna or play some music or something so we can get our headphones back. Actually, can you guys hear us? Okay, Phil. Okay, we're gonna keep going until break. Just give me signs. Okay, we'll keep going. All right.
There's other reasons.
Good job, CEO. Somebody's getting a performance review. Sorry.
Technical glitch.
So for the listeners out there that don't know what happened, so they don't think we're messing with our guest, Lori got out to move away and everything fell behind the scenes, and now I don't have any headphones and power's not on, and Lori's clearly been drinking. So go ahead. I'm sorry about that. Lance, go ahead.
So there are a lot of operational issues that I think need to be addressed, and I think I'm in a unique position to be able to ask those types of questions.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I do. Whenever I see errors in process or errors in thinking, I point those out and we get them resolved. And I think with the ferry system, for instance, there's been a lot of error in thinking.
So the counter argument is going to be he's got way more experience in the process. He's been active in the North End, state rep, state senator, all of that for a long time up on the North End. How do you counter the experience argument?
We have a lot of crime that's grown in the last 5 years. He's been there for 12 years. And a lot of people are not very happy with our ferry system. So it's results. You judge a tree by its fruit.
Okay. So the experience hasn't worked?
No.
Okay. Awesome.
Time for something new.
All right. So.
Oh, there we go.
We are figuring out where we are. Oh, we have headphones back.
Don't know if that's. I thought it was that one.
Yeah, you probably were. There you go. All right. Are we on Facebook now, Phil?
There
or did we? No, we didn't go. Okay, we're still here. Are we about to go into a break, or do we skip it? We're just going to skip.
Do what you do best.
Yes, sir.
Keep
I will.
talking, Daddy.
I will keep talking. Everybody has a job. Okay. And if you have questions in chat, I'll get to in a second. I want to wait till we get into a break, so we'll check when we go to break. You brought up the ferry system a few times. So let's start with the ferry system.
Okay.
Before I ask you this question, I need to quantify this with you so you understand my history. I have worked in Seattle since 2010. I used to commute 5 days a week on the big boats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I changed agencies, and then COVID hit. And then after COVID, I started going 1 day a week to a different agency on the little boats, the Kitsap Transit boats.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the lines, I went from hating Kitsap Transit and believing that they had no idea what they were doing, that there was no way that this passenger ferry idea was going to work, to actually thinking that they have somehow figured out the chicken and the egg. And part of it's monopoly, right? Part of it is the fact that the big boats don't run on a regular schedule out of Bremerton, even though they should, and they blame it on COVID, which is stupid and ridiculous. And part of it's because I just despise the Washington State ferry system. I think that they way overcharged. They have way too much middle management. I think that honestly, conservatives have fought for years against proper funding, like it's a part of the highway system, and Democrats have poured a whole lot of money into it, but not at the grassroots base employee level. They put a lot of money into middle management and upper management and trying to buy new environmentally friendly boats that may not even be feasible. So I just wanted you to know where I'm coming from, because I'm really as a Kitsaptonian. Is that even a word? Vested. It is now. Put in the dictionary, Uncle Webby's. I'm invested in the ferry system. I mean, it's how I get to work once a week when I have to do my in-office stay. I've been doing it for almost 15 years. And I know a lot of people that have been doing it longer than me. What is your most glaring issue with the ferry system? And if there's more than one, there's more than one. And then how do we go about fixing what, and you can tell me if you agree, to me is a hopelessly flawed, broken state agency? I know I just teed a whole bunch of softball questions up for you before all you liberals in the chat go giving him softball questions. I hate the ferry system. This is an easy question. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm not quick to necessarily villainize the ferry system yet.
Okay.
They've had a lot of directives from both the legislature and particularly the governor.
Mm-hmm.
I think the flaw was this. We had a governor that wanted to run for president, and he wanted to ballyhoo the whole net zero thing.
That worked out really well for him, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and not so well for us either. So we went from reliable diesel boats.
Mm-hmm.
We missed out on a whole lot of maintenance that could have kept some of our boats still running and doing fine. And instead, we decided to embark on this whole electrification act, because first they were supposed to be all electric. Found out that wasn't going to work. So now we're going to fall back to this idea of hybrid. There could be something there. I'm not necessarily fully against that idea. But you certainly don't take out the big boat like the Wenatchee that serves a very busy route to Bainbridge and decide, yeah, we're going to take that out. And, we promise we'll have it to you in a year. And like, oops, we're going to have it in the summer of 2025 instead.
Yeah.
As far as I know, that was a good running boat. And then, of course, after that one gets converted, then they want to take out, I believe, the Tacoma and do the same thing. And I'm like, no, that is silly. Those diesel boats were reliable. And right now we're short boats. Now, if we want to talk about doing hybrid, as we build and try one out and see how that works out, okay. But I don't believe we've actually ever made these boats at this scale. And I don't think anybody's made boats at that scale.
No, I don't believe so either.
So
not in the U.S. anyway.
Yeah. So I'm really skeptical about this whole hybrid. We're just going to go full board. We're going to bore, and then we're going to build these next 5 boats. We don't even know if they're really going to work.
Mm-hmm.
So diesel, I get people have issues with CO2, but the effects, I believe, are minimal, and the needs of the people are very high. We need to be able to get to work. And like you, I missed that second boat in Bremerton.
Yeah.
I mean, I live in Bremerton. I commute. Right now I have to be in the office 3 days a week. And now I've just been mandated that we're going to go back to 5 days a week.
Ooh,
so the fact that, in the past, before COVID, I used to take my electric bike. I'd take the 2 miles from my house down to the ferry. I'd hop on the ferry because it's nice. Because if you're riding a bike, you get right to the front of the ferry, and you get right on. You get right there at the last moment, and then you're the first one off the boat, and boom, I'm at work.
Yep.
Same thing coming back. It was wonderful. The fast ferries, where I have an issue with those, is yes, they get you fast across the water if you can get a seat.
Yeah.
Now, in the morning, not so bad. In the afternoon, you try to take the 425 or the 505 boat coming back to Bremerton. You better get there about 30, 40 minutes, which hasn't saved me any time at all.
And now you probably haven't ridden the Southworth passenger ferry.
I have, actually.
They have a bigger boat.
They do.
And they're never full.
Yeah.
And it always makes, now I'm not going to complain because I'm riding the Southworth boat. I make sure I got a seat every time I want to ride it. but I don't understand how they've staffed these, how they've allotted these boats. If it's because of wake reduction, which is why they don't have the boat that's going out of Southworth coming out of Bremerton because there's more wake zones around Port Orchard and Bainbridge as it leaves the Bremerton area. If that's part of it, I don't know.
I would personally, I mean, if we're going to do this passenger only thing, what I like about the Southworth boat is that you can put a whole lot more scooters on it, because that's how a lot of people scoot around. So when I get to the other side, I have to rent one of the line bikes or not a line bike, but a line scooter to get to work. And I'd rather just buy my own and just like zip on. And with that Southworth foot ferry, you can do that. You can also put a lot more bikes. I wouldn't care if that boat took an hour to get across, like the big ferry. I'd be fine with that. But the fast ferry, you're limited to like 5 scooters on the boat, so you don't really know if you're going to get yours on.
Yeah.
And then, I got to get to work, so I don't. And, has me wishing that, for decades we had 2 boat service in Bremerton, and, well, we need it back.
Does it feel to you, isn't the Lime scooters hella fun, though? Like, I did a Lime scooter for the first time last week. Like, I had never done a Lime scooter in Seattle before, and I did it last week. I had so much fun.
Just be careful in the rain, because if you hit a manhole cover, you'll die.
Nope. Can you find any rhyme or reason to why they're still handling the Bremerton run the way they are? Because the Bainbridge run is at 2 boats, the Edmonds run is at 2 boats, the San Juan run was at 3 boats, but Bremerton is still at 1 with huge gaps in between sailings.
Yeah, the claim is that the ridership was way down, and I personally believe that the ridership is way down because people don't have any faith that it's going to be there. Now, the one nice thing, thankfully, that the Washington State Ferries done is they gave us the Walla Walla. Thank God. At least that's a bigger boat. So whenever the boat is available, generally you can get your car on there. So that's nice. There's lots of room. It's a very comfortable boat. I'm not really a big fan of the Chimicum. But if we had 2 boats, okay, I could live with the Chimicum. And I loved it when we had the not the Hayak, the Clayton.
Yeah,
that was nice, yeah. I like that boat.
I like that boat too. Yeah, we might have ridden on the boat, same
Probably
time.
did.
Might have did that. Okay, so let's talk transportation as a whole, right?
Okay.
We'll step away from the ferry system. Look at transportation as a whole. Obviously on the north end, you've got the Hood Canal Bridge, and you've got all the associated highways and things. The one thing I never really understood was why. Well, I guess I understand why. How do we get out of the funding conundrum that we're in within the state? Because it feels like when there's big money to be doled out for any kind of a big project, we're going to kick it to the 3 major counties across the water, Snohomish, King, and Pierce counties. And then it feels like Kitsap and Jefferson and all the other counties are kind of fighting for scraps at the end. Do you think the budgeting within the transportation has been fair to your district specifically, or is there something that has to be done a little bit differently for that?
I'll be honest with you. I haven't looked into that issue as much as I probably need to.
Okay.
I've been so tunnel vision just on the ferries and trying to figure out what's going on with that, and then crime issues and affordable housing. So unfortunately, roads and transportation is kind of taken. Or what I can tell you though is, as a legislator, if you have an issue and you need money for your district, you go and fight for it. And okay, I'm going to say something controversial here, but I think Kitsap has been taken for granted, that it's just always going to vote one party, that, there's no danger of losing it. So we don't have to give them as much priority.
Okay. So how do you, I guess that opens up a really good next question. This is my favorite question to ask Republicans that want to serve in the House or in the Senate.
Right.
Because obviously if you win, you're in the minority party, right?
Well, we don't know that yet.
Well, do you like? Okay, I'm going to take a stab at it and say Republicans are probably not going to seize power of the Senate. I mean, I'm not psychic, but I play one on the radio.
Fair enough.
So let's assume that normal trends continue, right? And you walk in there as a minority member of the Senate. How do you fight for those votes? How do you fight for that representation when the Democrats can basically, honestly, give you the finger and say, we don't even need to talk to you. We got enough numbers almost.
It really depends on what the numbers are, what the ratio is between the 2 parties. I mean, if they have a majority or worse, a super majority, okay, that's tough. That's going to be really tough to get anything meaningful meaningful done. I mean, you can go run to the media and say, "Oh, they're unfair," and which is what happened with the property tax issue when they wanted to raise that to 3% increase every year instead of the 1% that we currently have, and that actually turned out to be effective. But you can only do that so many times. So just have to go in there and fight for it. You have to listen. What is it that you want, and use the best influence that you can muster, and tell them why your district really needs this help, and hey, how can I help you on maybe an issue that's important to you that doesn't necessarily hurt your district. I mean, you have to talk to people, and sometimes you have to horse trade. I mean,
are you confident in your ability to do some of that horse trading with Dems? I mean, do you feel like you're going to be able to create inroads and find kind of mutual ground with Democrats?
Yeah, I do actually. I know how to listen to people. This is what I do in my day job.
Okay.
I mean, I work out solutions. I find solutions to big piles of what we call ambiguity, and create order. And so, yeah, I think I have the skill sets to be able to listen, find out what it is that's important to them, understand where they're coming from, find out what their concerns are, and try to help people.
One thing you mentioned on your webpage, again, lancebyrd.com, BYRD, by the way, spell that last name correctly if you want to find it, is about parental rights.
Yes.
And so I want to open, we're going to go to break in a minute, but just kind of before we get into specifics, can you give me an overview of what restoring parental rights means to you?
I do not believe the state should insert itself between children and their parents, unless we have a mechanism, CPS, that if a parent has been judged that they are not fit and the state has to take custody, that's a whole separate issue. But before that children can go down a path of identifying as something that maybe nature didn't create them as, and then get treatment for that without parents knowing up front what's going on, and it being done against the parents' will. No, I'm absolutely staunchly against that.
Do you run that to 18? Do you run that to 16? When
18.
18. So
we as a society has decided that 18 is the age of majority, and that's when you were an adult. And when you were that, be my guest. You are welcome to be you.
Okay, we're going to break that down a little bit after break. So we're going to take a break here really quick. For those of you in the Facebook chat, oh, look, J. Andrew Kennedy's there. Go Huskies, J. Andrew Kennedy. How'd that game go against the Wolverines yesterday? Anyway, if you have a question in chat, I'm going to look at it as we come into break. So I'm not ignoring your guys' questions. I have a guest in front of me. I can't look at the computer and Lance at the same time. So we'll look at some of your questions in chat. We'll come back. We'll get into some of this, more of this parental rights stuff. So stick around. It's Outlaw Radio with Lance Byrd. He's running for state senate the 23rd, and he's your Republican nominee. We'll continue chatting with him in a moment right here, Outlaw Radio Network. Outlaw Radio. Question from a listener. We're going to back up because I don't want to wait till we're on AM before we get into more of this stuff with the parental rights stuff. So I'm not leaving the AM listeners behind. But follow-up question from a listener. Washington State Ferries just announced that they need to increase fares again because of decreased ridership, which seems to make a lot more sense to me. And not people aren't riding it. Let's charge the ones that are riding it more, so even less people ride it. Do you support a fare increase, or do we fund the ferries through taxes in some other way?
That is a good question. It reminds me of whenever a few years ago there was a drought, or they told us to conserve water, and so everybody did a really great job of conserving water, and then they went and raised the rates because they said, well, we still need to operate the service. So there's a baseline of yeah.
You use less water, so we got less money, so now we got to charge you more because okay.
So that's kind of what this reminds me of. Probably a combination of both, from the state and from fare riders. And I'm just going to file that as sometimes it's just not fair.
Okay. So I was liking you till that answer. I hate the idea of raising the fares. I'm serious. I'm giving you a hard time, but I hate
the ferries too.
Well, I hate the idea. Well, here's the other thing we've done on the ferries. We're giving every single child a free ride on the ferry. If you're under 18, you get a free pass on the ferry, which makes sense to me. But that means we have to offload that cost to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah.
When I was growing up, I had to pay for my bus fare and I had to pay for the ferry.
There you go. All right, hold on. We're coming back on AM. It's Outlaw Radio. We'll keep an eye open on more of your in the chat after this on Mega Talk.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
All right, Outlaw Radio. Again, we're talking with Lance Byrd. He's candidate for the 23rd District Senate seat, Republican nominee, going up against Drew Hansen, the incumbent. And have you ever served in any kind of elected office before? Or is this your first foray into?
So I ran for the school board. I learned that being a candidate has a whole different set of skills than necessarily serving for the position that you're trying to run for. So no, I have not served in elective office, not yet.
Okay. So we have a couple comments in the chat in regard to the ferry system. Lila said the ferries need to be funded through taxes, especially payroll from Seattle. And then they said, and you shouldn't have to pay for those rides. I think Lila means just in general. Maybe. Okay. Boy, free ferry rides.
Yeah, there's a value to riding the ferry. So yeah, there's going to be a fee for
that. The downside to riding that, you'd have to fix all the parking downtown and everything too, and because there's not enough parking anywhere near where the ferries are at. That's okay. All right, let's go back to parental rights stuff. So you mentioned before the break, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not a supporter of any kind of treatments for LGBTQ identification, trans identity things before somebody's 18.
No, that's a decision that belongs between the parents, the child, and their doctor.
Okay, so you would leave that to the parents, the child, or their doctor.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be in favor of outlawing it entirely.
No,
you would just say this needs to be decided between those three, and the government really needs to be hands off.
Yes.
Unless it's to say you can't have it if you don't have the parents on board.
Parents need to be involved. It's their children.
Tom?
Oh, I was just going to say that sounds very, very gold.
I've been interviewing him for the last 45 minutes, and the one thing Tom chooses to contribute to the interview is, this is our libertarian moment, brought to you by Black Ring Spirits.
But is he wrong? I mean, that's like the abortion conversation. That belongs between the doctor and the family. The state has no business being involved.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask him about the abortion question, and here's why.
Right. Okay.
Because I believe, and you can jump in on the abortion question if you want to. I'm not going to ask it because I believe that the abortion question is a non-starter in an election in this state.
Agreed.
It is the law the way that the law is,
Yep.
and unless Republicans suddenly have an act of God and take supermajority in the House and the Senate, the chances of that changing from being the law of the land is nil, like literally zero. And so I don't want to waste energy talking about something that isn't going to change.
Right. I was just drawing a
that's why I don't ask the question.
Right.
That's why I don't ask the question.
But I mean, the abortion conversation is not important to me. So and I'm talking about the individual rights, right? I mean, it was just a observation and drawing a parallel.
Okay. Lance, there are people that would argue though, that by forcing a 15, 16-year-old child who identifies as something other than what they are physically, I'm trying to phrase this so people don't get mad at me for how I phrased it. You get the point.
Right.
That by forcing them to remain in that without taking steps to correct or whatever does them more harm than good.
I would disagree with that. 80% of them tend to regret it after they've went through if you take it to its logical conclusion, many of them regret it. So how do you determine which are which?
Right. Well, and the other counter argument that I always use for this is that in California, they've deemed that you can't sentence someone to the death penalty for murder in California until they're 26, because they argue in California, the human brain is not fully developed enough until you're 26 to understand the repercussions of all of your actions. And that's a Democrat state that's passed that. And that's the reasons they passed that. So if you want to use that as a linchpin, if they don't know what they're doing till they're 26, why are we letting them make changes to their bodies that may not be reversible when they're 15? Wouldn't wouldn't that make sense to push it off until they're at least an adult?
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that you can't sentence somebody to death. I mean, you can do some very heinous things. I'd have more of a problem with the death penalty prior to 18, just simply because we haven't considered them to be an adult, even though they're fully capable of doing some pretty heinous things themselves. So I don't know if I'm necessarily going to use that argument, but a lot of 15-year-olds don't really know what they want.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying
Yeah.
in California, the
And-
Democrats have said
and-
26 is
right,
the
right, right.
age, right? So
Right.
it seems weird to me that the party that's pushing for this to happen
Yeah,
is attributing 26 to one and 13 to the other.
it creates a logical problem for him. Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
But where was I going to go with this? Lost my thought.
Okay.
Continue.
Sorry about that.
Yep.
I interrupted you. That was rude of me. I'm a bad host.
Nope, you're fine.
The death penalty need to come back?
Yes.
Do you? Okay. I'm gonna tell you why I don't support the death penalty, and you can respond.
Okay.
My concern with the death penalty is it's misapplied disproportionately, specifically to poor minorities, mainly because of the fact that poverty affects quality of representation and how good of a lawyer you can afford. Public defenders are way overtaxed on their time and energies and the number of patients they have, number of clients they have. So I don't feel like they can really give them the level of care that they need in presenting and defending their case.
There are some crimes that are so heinous. I mean, take Charles Campbell.
Mhm.
Even Mike Lowry, let him die.
Right.
I mean, that was one very heinous individual, and to get any sort of justice for that family, that's all you can do. I mean, really, what you want is your family back, but in the absence of that, people are entitled to justice, and sometimes even in the form of vengeance.
Is there a risk now? Is there a risk though? Like my argument has always been, if you kill one innocent person, then it's enough of a reason to overturn the entire process of the death penalty.
Well,
That's always been how I felt about it. What do you think?
So here's another controversial statement. for
Okay,
you.
here we go.
We do not have perfection.
Right.
But again, justice does cry out at times that the crimes, beyond a reasonable doubt, should be taken very, very seriously. And when you are sitting on a jury and you have doubts, instead of being maybe concerned about, gee, I'm gonna miss my baseball game or whatever, or I've got to get to my kids' thing, really contemplate what that means.
Mhm.
Is this really beyond a reasonable doubt? Did the prosecutor really prove their case? I mean, this falls on citizens, and it falls on the judge. I mean, the judge can also save the person. So, I mean, when you get to that point where you have a death penalty case, you would have to be very serious about, is this person really guilty? Did the prosecution, and I think there's a big thing missing and a lot of critical thinking that just is not going on in society, that you really need to think, why is this case being brought? Did they really prove it?
Mhm.
And if not, then you vote not to convict.
Right.
And you spare that person.
Yeah,
and
it's-
even in death penalty cases here in Washington, there's a lot of money that's spent for lawyers. I don't believe those are just your typical public defenders representing them. So when it gets to that point, there is a dollar figure attached to a rather high dollar figure attached to representing somebody who is being charged with a capital crime. So I don't know if I necessarily buy into the argument that they're not being properly represented. Because I mean that's why a lot of cases aren't even tried at that level, is because it's just that expensive, and maybe that is the right barrier.
Mhm. Fair enough. Let's the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. We had about 5 minutes left. I wanted to get into the question about. I just lost it. Oh no, taxes.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier about the gas tax and kind of your feelings about that.
Yeah.
In general, a lot of people in the state would say we're just way overtaxed. The state had a $4 billion surplus coming out of COVID. Rather than that money be used to apply to knock down taxes, they just figured out more creative ways to spend it. And the gas tax is exceedingly high. There's those initiative measures that are out there to try to curb some of that. What do you think of the current tax structure in the state? And what do you think, if anything, needs to be corrected or adjusted?
Ooh, big question. I know a lot of businesses are. I think it's more. more important that we have a stable tax, stable taxes and stable regulatory framework. I think there's more of an issue with that. Like businesses can't quite figure out what their risk profile is as to whether they want to plow money into the system or not, or they want to create a business here in Washington State. I think that's really a bigger issue than necessarily the amount of taxes that we're paying right now, is that it changes and fluctuates along with the regulations. As far as the initiatives, when it comes to the long-term care, yeah, that needs to go away. I see that as just a scam. And again, a backdoor way of creating an income tax, because what they'll do, if this one really gets by, what will happen is now you'll have this long list of things on your paycheck or your pay stub telling you all these special interest things that are going on, that the legislature thinks, oh, you need to pay for this, you need to pay for that. And so that needs to go away. So I really hope that people vote to remove that.
What's the amount that's paid out through that? Isn't like $36,000 or something on the long term?
That's your lifetime. And you won't have any, you can't, to use it, you can't have any assets other than that. And you have to be within the state of Washington. And there's one other fun thing, that if you were in the know, like my employer luckily made me in the know, you could get yourself exempted. So I actually have the piece of paper that says I'm exempted from that. And honestly, that isn't fair.
Yeah. It's what amazes me about it. They call it long-term care, but the average amount of cost for you to stay in a long-term care facility starts at $5,000.
Yeah.
Starts.
Yeah.
And so at best you're looking at not even 7 months worth of coverage. Boy, that's short-term care. That's not long-term care. I might have been more in favor of it if it made sense, if it was like a lifetime benefit and if you were deemed to need to go in. But to charge people money, what are they going to do at 7 months?
So I have a policy through Transamerica. It's like $600 a year or something like that. And I think it's 100,000 plus. So, I mean, just right there, it's like, where's the value that people are getting for this? So feels like a scam to me.
Pepper asked, can you be more specific about what needs to go away? I think this is in regards to taxes, I think. Pepper, I'm sorry, I just saw the comment. So if I'm missing something in that, I'm gonna, if you're cool staying on an extra three or 4 minutes on the Facebook side, we'll get some clarification. So Pepper put that in the chat. How do you propose that we fund the long-term care as more and more people require it, but can't afford it, leaving it up to the taxpayers to support the core?
Well, either way, we're gonna do it, and we do it through our sales tax.
Okay.
We grow our economy, and we can do that. But again, we need to create a stable taxes and regulatory environment for businesses to actually come to Washington and stay. And we don't go out, and we should also get rid of the capital gains tax, because we've ended up chasing out some of our largest earners. You know, that what do? They go and plow their money back into more stuff, creating more jobs, creating more of an economy. So we don't want to do things that's actually going to stifle business from growing, or even one to start to begin with.
This would be the easiest question I think I ask all night. I think I know what you're going to say. Sales tax or income tax? One
or the other.
Okay.
We've chosen sales tax. We stick with that. Just like Oregon has stuck with income tax, they tend to stick with that.
Okay.
So,
all right, we're going to go to the Facebook side and just wrap up with Lance. If you're on the AM, you can find out more. Go to lancebyrd.com. That's BYRD, lancebyrd.com. For those of you on Facebook, we'll check some of your questions really quick before we wrap up with Lance. It's Outlaw Radio on the Mega Talk Radio Network. All right, we're back on the Facebook side. So Lance, I'm going to rapid fire some questions from you. So we got 4 minutes.
Okay.
So I want you to give some brief, succinct answers if you can, but I don't want you to feel like you've got to throttle down if you need to fully explain. Okay. So the first question is, when is the bridge toll going away? I'm pretty sure we paid that sucker off several times over. Thank you, Mike. Any idea when that bridge toll goes away?
It's probably not.
Ever? Never, ever?
To be honest with you, it's probably not.
We are in Washington.
Yeah. Tolls, I think they're just going to be a fact of life.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to go away.
I'd love to tell you that I can wave a magic wand and that money is just going to, magically appear and that we don't have to pay it. But no, I don't think that's going to go away. That's not a promise I can make anyway.
Holly said, I think you already said this, ask him if he's for abolishing the capital gains tax that only impacts the top 2 or 3% of Washington earners.
Yeah, because it's going to trickle down eventually. I mean, they thought they were going to get Bezos, and what did he do? Oh, I think I'm going to go live in Florida. And then took, this, the state of Washington thought they were going to get $600 million off the sale. And he said, yeah, I don't think so. So we're just simply driving people out. And
is it telling that Jay Inslee has made it pretty clear that when he retires from the governor's office, he's going to live in Idaho, which is a much more tax-friendly state?
Well, you got Nancy Pelosi that decides that she's going to go live in Florida too. So, it's, why don't you live in the mess that you created?
Yeah, fair enough. Let's see. Lila says death penalty does not work for any crime. Terry said, why can't we write a bill that hands the final decision of an abortion between the doctor and the family? Is that something you would support?
We're going to talk about abortion. Okay. The people have decided in Washington state that they're going to have it. I am pro-life. I believe that, with few exceptions.
I'm going to remember real quick. I told you I was going to ask about abortion, so you can punt on this question if you want to. That wasn't fair of me to do that. I apologize.
We're there. So,
but she asked the question about that, writing the bill that way specifically.
No, I believe that there used to be a time when the call was safe, legal, and above all, rare. And I think we've wandered away from that. Abortion used to be considered a failure and tragic. And from my perspective, it's being used as birth control. There's been a failure in society on how to address this issue. But even the term abortion is kind of sugarcoating. You're killing. You're taking a unique individual that will never come into existence through no fault of their own.
Is there things that you could? So let's look at it this way. That as we've already discussed earlier, the state's it's not gonna change the law.
No, it's not.
Are there things you can do in the Senate to give? I don't know how to phrase this any other way than to say more attractive options to mothers that are pregnant, that are on the fence. Can I keep this baby?
I think halting the attacks on pregnancy support centers would be a start. A lot of them are under attack, or even being able to broach the topic of like there's options. Has been widely discouraged in Washington state, and I mean just on First Amendment grounds, people should be able to say there is hope for you. There are options available.
Is there a way to incentivize adoptions? For the mother, like if you were to say something like, if you have an unwanted pregnancy, you have a one-time opportunity. If you put that baby up for adoption to earn XYZ tax credit, is that an option, or does that drive people getting pregnant on purpose?
I don't even know if that's appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, bringing life into I think is its own reward, knowing that you don't have that stain on your soul. I mean, women live with this for a long time, and maybe when they're young, they think, this isn't a big deal. It's just a clump of cells. But when you get older and you mature and maybe you have that first child, you really realize what you've done, and that's hard to live with.
Yeah. Lance, I want to apologize again for asking the abortion question, because I specifically said I wasn't going to, and then I saw the question in chat and I stupidly messed up, and I'm just a doofus, and I do apologize.
No, it's fine.
That wasn't fair of me because I said I wasn't going to do that. LanceByrd.com. Lance, thanks for coming in, man. Can we do this again?
Absolutely.
You don't want to kill us, stab me in the eye with a pencil or anything?
No. And people are okay. My phone number is readily available. Call me.
Outlaw Radio. Back on AM after this.
Greed, deception, abuse of power, that's no plan. I'm the enemy. Because I like to think. I like to read. I'm into freedom of speech and freedom of choice. I'm the kind of guy who likes to sit in a greasy spoon and wonder, gee, should I have the T-bone steak or the jumbo rack of barbecue ribs with the side order of gravy fries? I want high cholesterol. I want to eat bacon and butter and buckets of cheese, okay? I want to smoke a Cuban cigar the size of Cincinnati in the non-smoking section. I want to run through the streets naked with green jello all over my body reading Playboy magazine. Why? Because I suddenly might feel the need to, okay, pal? I've seen this. You know what it is? It's a 47-year-old virgin sitting around in his beige pajamas, drinking a banana broccoli shake, singing I'm an Oscar Mayer week.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network. OutlawRadioNetwork.com.
All right, it's Outlaw Radio. Thanks to Lance Byrd for coming. I gotta eat. I gotta eat some crow. And again, look, I people are gonna say, well, you were so easy to tear when she was on last week, and then you asked him the abortion question. Wait, what's a mistake? I really did screw up. And I apologize to him off air too, because I said I was going to ask the question, and then I asked an abortion question. That was a K-Dog mess up. That was all my bad, and I'm going to own it because I shouldn't have done it, only because I said it wasn't going to. So to Lance, who's still here in studio, I'm sorry. That was my bad. That was bad pool for me. I know better than that. I've done this radio thing for 25 years. I know better than that. But thanks again for Lance for coming in, man. It was a pleasure to chat, and I hope we can continue chatting.
It was a fair question, and you should always be able to ask your politicians or people who seek power fair questions.
No, that's true. Thank you. I don't regret the question. I just regret the fact that I said I wasn't going to ask it, and then I still asked it. Like, my word better be better than that. So thanks to Lance Byrd for coming in. Thanks, and let's be in touch. We'll talk again. Okay.
Thank you.
And Lance, one other thing too, man, and I mean this, regardless what happens in November, whether you win or lose, let's say you lose, which is not the goal of the campaign, right?
Of course not.
But my hope is that people like you that are invested in the community, regardless what happens in November, stays invested in the community, still works at a grassroots level, still has your hand in there, still making an impact, still doing things to make the community better. That's my hope.
That's the plan.
Awesome, man. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. There goes Lance Byrd. Again, candidate, 23rd District for State Senate. You can find him at Lance Byrd, BYRD, lancebyrd.com. And thanks again for Lance for coming in. Paul's going to join us in here in studio in just a couple of moments. I'm afraid to even look at the chat. Yeah. No, and Pepper says I should have asked the question. I'm not debating if I should have asked the question or not. I had just said on the air, stupidly 5 minutes before I asked him, that I wasn't going to ask him about it because in this state, it's not a hot button question. Like the deal is that regardless of what he thinks or doesn't think about it, the law's not going to change. And I had an hour with the guy. I wasn't going to waste any of that hour talking about something that his vote will be inconsequential to address. And then I asked him the question because I'm an idiot. I'm a moron. I own that, but I'm an idiot. Hi, Paul.
Kevin.
What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. How are you?
Did you hear the interview with Lance?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Well, listen, we've got to work hard to get you out of the softball habit. You've never been on the field that I'm aware of. You need to stop acting like it. Give 110%, man. Really come at guys hard, Bend them over and play proctologist.
Wow. Violet said 50% of women are people, Kevin. I don't know why you had.
But not necessarily 50% of
technically
women are people.
51. I think it's like 51% of the population is female. By the way, women tend to live longer than men. That's true. So
they get arrested while they're going to the bathroom.
Yeah, Violet said probably more like 52%. It's in there, 51, 50. There's more women than men, and I'm still single and can't get a date. Yes, Phil.
If I'm not mistaken, 100% of Soylent Green is people.
100%.
Mike said, what district is Bremerton up off Kitsap Way? That would be the 26th district.
Well,
so that would not
Way
be
is 26.
Yeah, that would not be the district for the gentleman we just spoke to. You'd be looking
Lance.
at you'd be looking at the Emily Randall seat for Senate, and she's not up for re-election. So she's currently your state senator.
But she would like gifts for Christmas, nothing that is gas powered, and she likes stoves apparently.
I meant to ask her. I meant to ask
something electric powered.
Lance is in favor of keeping natural gas. I meant to ask him about that too. We just ran out of time. Any other thoughts on Lance?
No, listen. It was informative enough for a voter to be able to make a real good determination, and that is the point. That is why we sit in these chairs for all these years. That is why we talk to people running for office. Our responsibility to our community is to help people make up their mind about who they're going to vote for. That's a big part of why we do this.
Yeah.
It's amazing our track record, by the way, because we do, for most people probably aren't aware that we do this, but we'll sit down like a couple of days before and we'll pull out the pen and paper and we'll talk about who we think's going to win. We do stuff publicly, but we'll sit down and our projections are like really, really accurate, like scary accurate, because you can tell a lot. At least, let me rephrase that. They're accurate with the people that we've had in studio.
Yep.
Because you really get a chance to see, who campaigns well and stuff like that. It was interesting because years ago, there was this little twat waffle, and she was running the 23rd, which we called her Turd Ferguson.
April Ferguson.
Yeah, and
hi, April.
And I will tell you,
did you move? It's our fault. Okay,
I've never seen anybody in my life ruin a political organization in an area as much as she did. It was pathetic. I was, as a contractor, I was in her home doing some work on filing day. That's when all the names come out of all the people that have filed for the races. And she absolutely lost her marbles. It was like she took the bag, dumped it upside down, and then went looking for them underneath her own couch. She was so angry that somebody was filing to run against her as a Republican that she didn't know.
Well, it's because it was Ace Haynes.
No. This was another gentleman in her district, and I'm looking at her, because we've interviewed her and stuff at that point in time. We were on the radio, and I said, it's the primary, and the primary is your scrimmage time. Yes, only probably one of you will get through, but nonetheless, this is when you refine your message. This is when you work on your speaking. You shouldn't be pissed that somebody has decided to use the process and run as a Republican. But man, that girl, Nelly, she left a trail like a slug running out of that place that day. I'll tell you what, if it was probably flammable. But I'm just saying, man, the number that she did on that district was just crazy. And I want to wave and say hi to the chicas that are listening today in the chat room. Love you, gals. You're great. Eyeliner though, eyeliner, ladies, you need eyeliner.
Okay, I'm not going to go there with you, Tom. Did you have a thought on Lance Byrd in the conversation?
Well, they were doing Vance impressions. They just weren't wearing enough.
Go ahead, Tom.
Pictures are terrible. When you use a bad picture as your Facebook profile, God himself will punish you.
Paul, did you hear Tom's contribution to the entire Lance Byrd interview?
It was
45 minutes in. Tom goes, "That's very gold of you."
Otherwise,
which basically means he's not going to win this election because you gave him the libertarian curse.
Did you really?
It wasn't
to think that Kevin called you out this week in a post as well.
Calling me out for a while.
He literally said, "You have no business, and nobody in your party has any business running for political office because you will never win."
Oh,
I did say that.
Like, and you're like, "How very gold of you." I don't know how to take that, Tom.
Tom, what did you think of Lance?
As a guy, I mean, how do you mean that question?
Did you think he was hot?
Yeah,
that's how he meant the question.
Yeah. Candidate, individual, whatever impression you took out of that.
Seems like a very nice guy. I like his fiscal ideology and
very Republican of you.
Yeah, but aside from that, I think Republicans and Democrats have the same problem. They are more aligned with their agenda than they are with we the people.
Yeah, well, he went red for 3 seconds, Kevin, then went right back to gold.
Yep, he did. Phil, did you want to say something?
I was going to say it was nice that he's intellectually honest to the
to
the topics. Abortion, obviously, it's a hot button topic. Yet, to your point, it's moot in this state.
It is.
Just like voting libertarian. Yeah, we think it's a great idea, except it's moot.
Yeah, it's moot
anywhere in this country. Believe me, I'm sad.
Lilat said 100% just a standard R ideology, nothing about compromise, all the same talking points.
Actually, that's not true.
That's not true.
He very matter-of-factly talked about and
reaching across the aisle.
And I will tell you that is a problem that a lot of Republicans have right now, but more Democrats do. And the point is that there's a lot of people in this state with regards to Republicans that get their panties in a bunch because they're like, this person isn't Republican or conservative enough. That's a big damn problem.
Yes,
it's a really big problem. It's a really big problem from the Democrats as well. But as from a minority standpoint, you'll never get anything done.
Well, it goes back to that allegiance to the agenda and not to the best interests of the people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, that's nice, Goldie. I'm saying here that he absolutely said that, and he was adamant about it. He's talked about it for like 3 minutes. So how you missed that says that the bias that's within your own self wasn't capable of listening to that, because he was very open about it.
Lilat said, what did he say was a compromise? He didn't, but what he did say is that he was willing to work with Democrats to find compromises so he didn't. So Lilat, you're correct in the sense that he didn't give a specific platform.
How could he? He's not in there.
Well, hey, one thing that he agreed with Holly on was the whole idea of the parole board.
Yes.
So
because it's practical.
Yeah. Hey, listen, here's my impression. Nice guy. I thought he was knowledgeable.
There's something about Kevin eating nuts while talking. I don't know.
Oh,
It's just,
shut
it's
up.
really sexy.
You know, we
Go
do
ahead.
an entire hour show where we actually have conversation. You come in here and just start capping on me.
I'm not capping on you. You're the one eating nuts. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I hate you.
I know.
Hope you die in a fire.
Love you too. Sunshine.
Nice guy.
Yeah.
Knowledgeable. As a Republican, he would probably do well in any kind of a red district. I think that he would do well. This is not a knock on him, but as I said about Tara, the same thing applies. That district is what that district is. You know what I mean? That district is a blue district, and he could be the second coming of Ronald Reagan, and he would have zero shot in that district.
I'm gonna push. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm gonna push back a little.
Go ahead,
bit
push back
on the 23rd. Having a family member who ran for office there, and I helped. So you get a chance to see some of the inside demographics. Looking at the phone bank data and the information and the phone calls that were made, you may not want to believe this, but the truth of the matter is that's a 45-55 district.
But that's not what we've seen in the last several elections.
It isn't. And why is that? Because you had an individual come in with her own agenda who ran the GOP in the 23rd and tanked it.
Okay.
And I mean, she absolutely pummeled that district into the ground, and people that weren't carrying her water got pushed out. That district was absolutely traumatized, and the GOP in that district probably has a good case of PTSD because of having to deal with somebody who threatened to sue everybody who looked at her in the wrong way. Right. So
you think some of it is still the hangover from the Turd Ferguson?
Well, I think a lot of people left. They said they gave up.
Okay, I would agree.
They Compton it. You know, they just got to the
point
where
they're like, I didn't say it.
They're like, F it, I'm moving.
God, I love you. I hope he hears that.
But that doesn't do anything for that district.
Right.
And I want to point this out. You know, we had Tara on. You interviewed her, albeit in particular Kevin sort of way.
Oh my God.
And I didn't say anything negative. I
did the interview the exact same way I did this interview.
Yes.
No different.
I know. I don't ever get a chance to give you grief about anything, so I'm going to take full advantage of it. Here's the thing. She made it very clear. And everybody knows, Tara knows that I disagree with her on 90% of policy. But her and I still have very good conversations. We have them off air, private messaging on Facebook and stuff. People may not want to believe it because they think I can't be fair or something. No, absolutely I am, and she would tell you that, I'm sure. But here's the one thing that she said that troubled me, and probably not in the way people are thinking. It troubled me because she was right. And she said very clearly during the interview, she's like, I am thankful that I live in a district where I can be me. Do you guys know what she meant by that?
She doesn't have to worry about.
She doesn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
And that's because her district is well established as a Democrat stronghold on the Kitsap Peninsula. Now, having said that, numbers
don't you think it's more than that? Like, I agree with you that the county is a stronghold, but I believe.
I don't think any politician should ever feel that way.
No. But what I mean is, I believe that she is also a really good candidate for that. You know what I mean? So for who she's marketing herself to, for who her constituents are, she is the ideal candidate for that district.
Well, I can't say. I don't live in that district. I was involved with running a campaign in that district, and I saw numbers that showed me things are not always as they seem. The biggest problem in the 23rd was not getting out the vote. not having the PCOs in place to push their people to get out and vote. That was the biggest issue. And as much as I dislike, screaming little, green apple splatters turd Ferguson, that was one thing that she had organized well. She had organized it well. I mean, it was the Hershey squirts coming out of the freaking out of the first part of the election there, and they were rolling like wet dough in a processing plant. They had everything going, and they could have competed with just about anybody in the 23rd.
Yeah.
Each one of those 3 women candidates, with the exception of Ferguson, the other 2 women that were running, Pam and Elena, were both first-time candidates. And they still managed to garner 35,000 votes.
Yeah, but that worked out to be what, 33%?
No, it was oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, it was about 35%. Yeah. Okay. Now when you consider the influence that Outlaw Radio Network has shown that it has here locally,
we have a lot
based on the vote totals that Lori got. That's not easy to get. That's 3 times better than doing nothing.
Right. Yeah, so, I feel like getting back to Byrd, I think he would be a really credible Republican in a Republican district.
For sure. Yeah, put him in Mason County, he's par for the course.
Yeah. But up north, he's going to get 31% of the vote. You know what I mean?
35.
31.
Depends on how many people. It's a presidential year.
That's true.
So we'll have higher vote totals. But again,
which doesn't bode well for him.
The reason for that, but you know what? Listen, here's something I think people forget this a lot of times. You see somebody running for office and you think they're out to win. Nah, that's not how you can approach it here. You have to approach it like this. I'm running. This is my first time running. I don't expect to come close to winning, but what I'm doing is building name recognition. By the 3rd time they run.
But isn't that the problem in the North? And none of them have stuck around for name recognition.
That is part of the problem.
If we look at the people that are running now,
because there's no infrastructure.
2 years ago, and then 2 years before that was
the Kitsap County GOP has failed its candidates monstrously. Capital M, not for Michigan, monstrously.
Well, hopefully the new LD chair for the 35 Republicans stays in it for a while and is able to start to rebuild. Not because I'm advocating for Republicans in the North End. I don't live there. I don't have a dog in the fight. But if the goal is to give voters a true balance of who to choose from, then they got to get some stability in that district on the Republican side. And as you said, that hasn't had it in a long time.
They have to get some leadership, and they have to go into the voting seasons with a plan, and that plan takes all year to put together. They can't have candidates announcing 3 or 4 months before the election that they're going to run. You can't decide you're going to run for office on filing day, right? You should take that entire year-long ramp up at minimum. Listen, and again, the GOP in Kitsap County has lacked leadership for a while. And I'll point to something that you always, bring up. How do you support and put your full faith behind a candidate like Michelle Caldeer, somebody who just a few years ago assaulted a constituent at a reorganizational meeting?
Good question.
It doesn't make any sense if you're going to provide good leadership, and you have to have good leadership, especially in a place like Kitsap County, where depending upon what side of the listen, there's no illusion that the further north you go, the more blue it gets. And the city of Bremerton's blue, but a lot of the outlying, the burbs and out, the outlying areas are all, spank my ass red.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely
I'm
right.
not doing that again to you either, man. That was nasty.
You're absolutely right. But the problem is, as you alluded to, there is a gap in the leadership and accountability within the party in Kitsap County in general.
Well, I don't think
some of it feels like it's in the process of being corrected. That's what they're trying to do on the North End, right? They're trying to undo what April Ferguson did. Holly said that was a long time ago. It's a moot point now.
What's she saying?
That since April left, that's not the reason why it's an issue up there now. But I would argue that it is, because not only did you have her at the head of it, but you lost all your foot soldiers.
When
You lost-
when that boat sank, it took a whole lot of people down with it.
And now they're rebuilding an organization from scratch in a district that's not really friendly to them anyway.
And they spent 2 years and a lot of money building a network of PCOs. And your PCOs they're the ones in the trenches.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones who are out there making the phone bank calls. They're the ones who are out there knocking on doors. They're the ones telling the people within their precinct, hey, we need you to vote. Do you need me to, pick you up and take you to the store to get you stuff to vote? They're the ones that are helping. That's the whole point of your precinct committee officers. And again, and she may not want to believe that, but I don't really care what she thinks. That she's not involved in it. I can conveniently say she don't know crap about the Republican Party in the 23rd.
Do you know who I think the 23rd should mimic? Who they should copy? Pay attention to?
Who do you think that they should copy? Who do you think they should mimic?
I think that they should mimic. What was it? He lost in the primary. Matt Macklin. They should watch and mimic Matt Macklin, because Matt Macklin right now is doing that job of name recognition, of name building. You know what I mean?
If you're referring to the point that I made earlier about
Yes.
running once, building a little name recognition, then you run again, you building more name, and you cannot.
And that's what I think they need to do in the North End.
I don't disagree with that. You have to have the same candidates run year after year.
Yep.
That way, year after year, they're getting a little bit more recognition. They're shaking a few more hands. People are getting to know them.
Yeah.
That's the key to victory in a place where you're almost 50-50, right?
You're taking somebody that nobody knows of and introducing yourself one election, one cycle at a time.
And I would tell you, the other person who proved his strategy worked was Mayor Greg Wheeler, right?
Oh, yeah.
You got to want it, man. You got to knock on those doors. And you got to go out and you got to talk to people face to face. People, name recognition wins you that vote when people know who you are.
Yeah.
When they don't, it doesn't.
I'm a big fan of Matt Macklin, by the way. I really am a big fan of that guy.
Careful. If you say you like him too much, people like Holly will start to hate him.
Oh, probably. It's okay.
Yeah.
You guys can hate me.
Can I have your nuts, Kevin?
I'm not a bad guy. I'm not a good guy. I'm
Sucking on these
just
nuts.
the guy.
Is your nuts?
I brought in pistachios for everyone to share.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure they were your nuts that I was sucking
my
on,
nuts
that's
in
all.
like a weird way.
What?
Don't make it creepy, Paul.
What am I making creepy?
God.
That's if I get stuck on your
It's
nuts.
only a matter of time before you're on Washington's Most Wanted.
Now that's mean.
Checking out other people's nuts.
That's mean. No, I would
God.
never steal anybody else's
Weirdo.
nuts.
All right.
Yours have a particular
We
flavor.
come back. We're going to talk about a topic that Paul and I
Pistachio.
are not going to agree about. It involves Bibles and
Oh.
Oklahoma. Stick around, Outlaw Radio.
I think he knows how I'm going to think about it.
You already commented on my thread, you dumbass.
The Trump Thumper Bibles. I think the Bible should be required reading in grade school and junior high.
Hold on. We're not doing this now because we're not on AM. So we're not going
I
to start
know.
the conversation now.
We can start the conversation later. I'm just giving you my thoughts, okay?
I know.
So
And we'll talk about it in a minute. Yes, Phil?
I was going to say, we should figure out what was the core reasoning behind the whole Bible thing.
Wait a minute. We're going to talk about that when we come back on AM, not now.
Oh.
You guys are hard to train. All right. Comments in chat.
Pistachios might help.
Holly said,
wants your nuts, too.
Well, come get some nuts then. Jeez. Well, I'm not going to. This is not a delivery service. What am I, Uber Eats?
No, you're Kevin's Treats.
Good Lord.
Please don't be
Holly
so
said,
formal.
worst person in Kitsap Peninsula politics, hands down. Who is? So you can't put Holly open-ended comments like that because it makes me wonder if you're talking about Matt Macklin. And I don't think you are because you had a good comment about him before. So I
think
need you to tell
Matt's
me.
a hell of a guy.
They were chatting about Jesse Young a little bit too, so I don't
were
know.
they?
It's hard to tell because they don't use proper nouns in place of pronouns, and it's hard to determine in the short format.
They, them.
And you guys in the
She,
chat
her.
too. Stop talking about the Bible in
She,
Oklahoma.
it.
We're doing that on AM. Just relax. Hold on a second. God. Like
Please.
leading a horse to water and then drown in a minute.
It's not funny when you see the footage coming out of North Carolina, dickhead.
We're going to talk about that at 10 o'clock. Maybe at 9:45. But we are definitely going to talk about
let me
it.
talk
Because you and
about
I are going to
horses
disagree about
drowning.
that as well.
What, the Southeast doggy paddle?
You and I are going to talk about that as well. And we're going to disagree about that also. because I have inside knowledge that you don't really understand because you're a simpleton. All right, hold on. We're coming back on AM after this. Is Outlaw Radio. K-Dog and the Simpleton.
What a cocksucker.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
Outlaw Radio, I love the chat. And Margie, I love you. Because every once in a while, Margie just throws out at something that has nothing to do with anything we were talking about. Homeless veterans! Like, we weren't even talking about that. She doesn't give any context. She just throws out homeless veterans. And then she comes back 2 seconds later and says, homeless female veterans. We're not even talking about that.
Hold on. I've explained to you before that Margie has computer Tourette's.
No, I love Margie. That's what I'm saying.
No,
I
she's
love
great.
Margie.
She's great.
great. I just
Football.
It's always like, here's a squirrel. Okay. So
we love you, Margie.
On Friday, in the fine state of Oklahoma, you ever been to Oklahoma, Paul?
I drove through it.
Okay. The memorial, the Oklahoma City Memorial, is amazing down there. By the way, if you've never had a chance, check it out. I recommend you do so. The state of Oklahoma.
Heard it was a blast.
Oh my God!
Really?
Really?
Too soon?
You're a horrible person.
I know. I'm
Paul,
going straight to hell.
Paul, go
What?
outside and come back in now. Okay, just leave the room. Start
I'm
over.
not going outside of nothing. I'm enjoying Kevin's nuts.
All right. So listen. On Friday,
Paul, go outside and start over.
On Friday, the state of Oklahoma passed a bill that requires
Bill's
about
coming for your nuts.
Bibles in all public. Come get some, Phil. My God, I'm trying to run a radio show. Come in here with your hand out. When did you become a Democrat? Okay. So anyway,
I'm going outside.
Damn.
So
I just want my fair share.
that's right.
Of nuts.
That I paid for. All right. So
Very
the
left of you.
Oklahoma passed a bill that said that Bibles are required in classrooms in Oklahoma. Now, that in and of itself, I don't have as much of an issue with. I'm not a huge proponent of this because it legislates a level of religion in schools, and I'm not a fan of that. I'm a Christian. I own my own Bibles. Like, I get it. Whatever. It is a historical text. So for that reason, I think it should be in the libraries for sure. And I'm not opposed to it being in the classroom if it's balanced with maybe other historical texts. However, this bill is freaking stupid. And here's why. Not only does it have to be a Bible, but the Bible has to have other things added to it to qualify in the Oklahoma schools.
Yep.
It must be King James Version. It must have both the Old and New Testaments. It must include copies of the Pledge of Allegiance, the Declaration of Independence, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And it must be bound in leather or leather-like material. Now, here's my problem with this. Most Bibles are not packaged with any American patriotic documents. It's not the purpose of the Bible. The Bible is a religious text about God and Jesus and the second coming and Revelation and creation and all of that, right? And whether you are for or against the Bible, that's what it's about. It is not about the United States. In fact, if you wanted to be completely honest, it should have a copy of the Israeli national anthem and the Israeli Constitution, because the Bible speaks specifically about Israel being God's chosen people. So if this is about historical context or whatever, there should be nothing in there that links to America. And the schools should all have that stuff in there anyway. Like, this is the United States. So the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and all that should already be in the classrooms. But it even gets better than that. One of the few Bibles that actually match what Oklahoma has passed as a requirement for the Bible in the classrooms is the Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA Bible that's endorsed by Trump. Now, do I think Trump is involved in this? I don't know. Maybe.
He's just endorsed the Bible, dude. It's not that he's selling it or it's
No,
his product.
I get it. But this screams somebody's getting their pockets aligned.
Mm-hmm.
This screams lobbyists are getting their pockets aligned. Lee Greenwood's getting his pocket. God bless the USA. Okay. This screams somebody's getting money in their back pocket. And this is gross and stupid, Phil.
I was going to say someone came up with a solution and is now looking, or a problem. I'm getting it backwards. They came up with a product. Now they need to come up with an audience to purchase it. I kind of alluded to that in the chat.
We came up with a solution. Now we got to find our problem.
We see that with some of the two-way radios having this must survive 2,000 degrees for 15 minutes.
We see
and there's
that
only
with,
2 brands.
We see that with big pharma.
Yeah. Now, to the point, why would we have King James? I mean, clearly the Bible that came over on the Mayflower was the 1599 Geneva Bible. So, I mean, they're not,
Well, listen, I don't know why they want the King James anyway, because if the goal is for the Bible to be disseminated out to people for the easiest to understand, you're not giving them the King James. You're going to give them the NIV or the ESV. You're not giving them the King James that talks in thous and whatnots and shall and all. You're going to make it as conversational as possible. Do the Millennial Bible, for Christ's sakes. But you're not going to do the King James Bible. That's stupid.
The Pigeon Bible.
The Pigeon Bible, yeah. This is stupid. And this infuriates me as a believer. Because now we're trying to equate being a believer and being a Christian to being a patriot and having a copy of the 10 Commandments. And the two of those don't line up. Nowhere in the Bible is the phrase United States of America mentioned. I hate to break it to you, but we are not God's chosen people.
Are you sure about that?
Positive. We're not. We're not blessed like the children of Israel.
Yeah, they're blessed.
Well, that's
they
what
can
the Bible
keep that
says.
blessing.
Just telling you, that's what the Bible says. So I don't know what you think, Paul.
Wait,
I
do you believe everything you read?
What?
No,
in the Bible, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Suck it. That was very Christian of me, Paul. I'm sorry, but suck it anyway.
That's all right. I'm used to it.
I
got nuts in my fingers.
I don't understand why Republicans can't stay in their lane. Like, and again, Democrats do this too. Like, I'm not letting Democrats off the hook. But why can't Republicans stay in their lane? It's like you give the Republicans a little bit. The Supreme Court rules that Bibles can be included in classrooms because it's a historical text. And Republicans, frothing at the crotch, can't just leave it at Bibles in the classroom. They've got to add all this extra stuff in there that then means only one Bible really qualifies, and somebody's going to make a lot of money off of it.
It seems like you're miffed.
Churches would donate Bibles for free. It wouldn't cost the taxpayers a freaking dollar. But they made sure they made it in a way that nobody's got that Bible to give it. Instead, it's $60 a piece. Online, $60 a piece. Go ahead, Paul. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So annoying.
Listen. It's fine to be annoyed by it. I don't think that the Bible should be in a school to begin with. But having said that, do states not have the rights to self-determination? Do they not have the right? Did they not vote for their head of education department in Oklahoma? The people, when you look at Utah, you don't just see a state, you see a state that is effectively controlled by Mormonism, by the Mormon Church, right? Nobody questions that. Hell, those people didn't even allow alcohol to be open served in their state until the Winter Olympics came to town. Right? They did things their own way because of their faith.
Oh, I have a funny story about alcohol in Utah.
We'll share them over a beer.
Whiskey.
The other Bible that meets the specifications, by the way, is the We the People Bible, which was also endorsed by Donald Trump Jr., and that's $90.
I don't know why you care about any of this. And that's because you were convinced that I was going to see different. I don't think the Bible should be in school. Sorry. No religion should be taught in school.
I was
okay. Other than like if you're going to do
you'd be okay with being in the library,
talk about,
right?
Santa Claus, whatever.
You'd be okay to be in the library.
Absolutely. I have no problem with it being in the library. But it shouldn't be a instrument of teaching, right? Go ahead, Jeremy.
Doesn't this go back just a little bit? I mean, now I grew up down south in the Bible Belt. We went to church morning, moon, night, Sunday morning. I mean, church on Tuesday, church on Wednesday.
Oh, when you guys have church. When you guys have church, you don't even cheat with church. You're like church all day Sunday.
Church.
We get there at 9 o'clock. We're home in time barely for dinner.
Now, I believe it wasn't it Madam O'Hara, I believe it was, who fought very, very hard, because when we was growing up in school down there, we actually had to pray and say that, and pray every morning, right after we said the Pledge of Allegiance. There was a prayer. It was Our Father which art in heaven, now be thy name. It was on a daily basis. But then they made a measure, or they passed that that it was going against others' teachings and religions. Wouldn't this infringe a little bit on that? If not, if you start introducing Bibles into classrooms again, where you're almost forcing teaching of the religions in the schools.
Perfectly valid point.
Yeah.
But we have state sovereignty, right?
Correct.
Which is the same thing that we've seen with the abortion decision. The states have the right to self-determination. If you have a religious section of your state, a large population, and they vote people into office that will pass those laws, well, guess what? That was that state's right to do that. So if the people of Oklahoma voted to do that, Kevin, who are we to say that they are wrong for it? It represents their values.
I don't disagree with that it represents their values, supposedly. Okay. I mean, I don't know if the voters support that fully. You know what I mean? Like, we'll have to wait and see what the fallout is, and if it changes, say, with elections or whatever, right? I have always hoped that in this country we would have a little more 50-50, 49-51, 51-49 kind of split politically, right? That Republicans and Democrats would have some kind of a balance, right? To keep one side from going wonky donkey over the other one.
It's really kind of 50. It's like 49-49, 2% gold.
Well, but 2%, that's awful high.
No, I think it's about 2% of the
0.2%.
2% of the population, I think, is day glow gold. Don't you, Tom?
Honestly, if you talk to most common sense people who step away from all the partisanship, we're probably like 60% gold.
I don't pragmatically. I think you are actually are really onto something there. But as far as people that support the party, I think maybe you have a strong 2, maybe even 3% of the American population that come out and supports the. That's why I was kind of hoping that it would have a better showing. But this year, I thought this was a good year for it. It just hasn't happened the way I thought it would. But nonetheless,
this year was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah.
I think weird's a good way to put it. We're not talking about Vance or Trump.
No, and it's going to continue to be weird.
Yep. It definitely.
Guess how much they got in the last presidential election?
What,
Who got? The Libertarians.
2020?
Yeah. Percentage wise.
It was like 1.3%.
1.2, yeah. 1.2. 1.2.
Yeah, I knew it was small.
It's very small.
Yeah. It was smaller than
going backwards.
The previous election cycle.
Going backwards.
Yeah.
And it's going to go even further backwards this time. Because you had national.
How's Harris going to handle that?
You had national name recognition with Spike Cohen, and both of these guys. Well, I don't have an issue with either one of them. They have no name recognition.
Oh, well,
agreed.
Seriously, how's the Harris Waltz campaign going to handle that? Because their whole campaign is we're not going back, and now apparently y'all are.
What do you mean by y'all? You're looking at me and saddling me with.
Reminds me of that scene from Tropic Thunder. Who are you calling those people? Or what is it? What's the
you
line?
people?
What are you calling you people? I never saw the movie.
Yeah,
all right.
Trying got to quote a movie. Never saw it, but
I've seen clips from it. I see clips. I pay attention to pop culture.
Yeah, but you don't get to saddle me with Harrison Walls. No.
Because her whole campaign slogan is "We ain't going back."
No.
And depending upon where she's at, determines what accent she uses.
Well, take a look at your comments and chats about this. It feels like we're on the same page more so than I thought we were going to be. We'll talk about something else after the break. Maybe Paul dying in a fire. Jerk. Outlaw Radio back after this. All right. Elizabeth said in chat, your Republicans are different from the Republicans in Oklahoma, so people think differently. I know.
I think that's very true.
You know, the whole Bible Belt, Republicans are a little more Republican-y.
The Republicans in Washington State would be considered liberal in most of the Bible Belt, I would think.
Okay. Pepper says, Jeremy, history belongs to everyone. If only the Bible is being represented in the classroom, where does the historical argument lie? I'm just reading the quote from the comment in the chat.
the historical relies there because prayer, unfortunately, was, I mean, they basically almost made it very, very illegal to even have prayer or any type of religion in school. So if you're going to start reintroducing the Bible back into the schools and almost making it where they have to actually teach it, not saying that they're going to make it legal or make it mandatory, but by even saying, hey, that we're gonna put it into a classroom. So for those who are not religious, let's just say for those who's not religious, are you gonna force them to take classes that they don't want to be in? Or are you going to force them, or are you going to fail them if they don't take the classes? What if they don't want to read the Bible? I mean, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I my other question is, so there's a law requiring the Bibles to be in the classroom. I haven't heard that there's a curriculum requirement, just that they're supposed to be there. Hold on, we're coming back on AM. It's Outlaw Radio on the Megatalk Radio Network. Brought to you by Black Ring Spirits. Get drunk.
I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
Outlaw Radio. K-Dog, Paul, Black Tom, Black Trojo, Lori.
Freaking racist.
Bob Ross. DJ D's around here somewhere. Sorry, Black Tom, White Trojo. Okay.
You can tell Trojo's a good guy here because he's got the white hat.
You know what?
Did you guys win tonight?
They're playing right now.
We're still playing.
What's the score?
It is 17-13. Pittsburgh is up. Dallas is on the 2-yard line with 52 seconds left.
So they're 2
First
yards
and goal.
out from scoring? Or okay,
Yeah.
okay.
First
So
and goal.
you're saying there's a chance.
I picked him in my pick 5 contest tonight. So
I know. Excuse me, they're on the
Phil?
4-yard line.
So
yes, Phil.
You know, and it doesn't often get considered because the whole we don't want religion. Of course, the secular non-religion has a religious component as well in its because there's philosophy and that nature to it. Additionally, why there's value in the Bible as literature. There's value in being aware. Where did we come from? What are the values our country was started with? You can make your own decision, but we're not asking you for salvation in Christ. We're saying, what does it actually say? Because a lot of people just don't actually know. They are dumb.
Well, and here's the other question. Holly kind of alluded to this too. Students can bring their own Bible to school, right? I mean, even with the separation of church and state, I don't think there's anything that says a student can't have a Bible of their own and take it to school. So if the goal is to have a Bible in the classroom, wouldn't that be at the discretion of the individual students that wanted to have a Bible in the classroom?
When I was in high school at South in the late 80s and the early 90s, there were classes offered at South that were, the Bible as literature. There were 2 or 3 others.
Yeah.
And they were electives. They were not forced upon anyone. If you wanted to take the class, cool. If you didn't want to take the class, cool.
Oh, when Lori and I grew up in Stanwood, religious groups all the time used the library and the gym and had special events and things. And in Stanwood at that time, it was a very quote unquote Christian community, right? So you can't do any of that stuff now.
Right.
They're not allowed to, in some districts aren't even allowing Christian groups to rent out the auditorium or the gym for events or whatever.
Yeah, there's an issue with praying at halftime.
I don't think any of the I don't think any of those Bible as literature classes were available when my son was in high school. No. I think those are all gone now.
Yeah.
So, but as an elective, I'm not a religious guy, but as an elective, it seems harmless to me.
Lila said, students can bring religion into school. That isn't the same as a state teaching religion. That's exactly what I said, Lila. We're actually on the same page. I'm saying the state didn't need a mandate for Bibles to be in the classroom because if kids wanted a Bible in the classroom, they'd just bring their own. But I'm going to get back to my key point. I don't understand why Republicans can't stay in their lane. We saw this with abortion.
We put a bunch of Asian women drivers in the car. That's why.
Wow, you're in rare form tonight, man. Clearly, you and your wife had a fight before you came here.
No.
We saw this with abortion. We saw this with abortion. Republicans finally got the Supreme Court to overturn Roe v. Wade. And rather than understand what would have been a responsible way in which to proceed, some states, Idaho, went balls to the walls insane and tried to block abortions that were required to save the mother's life, that were required in the case of rape or incest. I mean, they went completely overboard. They could have just been reasonable. This Bible thing is the exact same thing. Just because the Supreme Court says you can have a Bible in the school, then doesn't mean that Republicans should make a mess in their pants because they get to add a whole bunch of stuff so somebody can make a lot of money. Phil?
It just occurred to me, I think technically Bible's already available in the classroom, given the digital nature, unless they're actively filtering the URLs like Bible.com and Logos.com. I mean, at some level, the information is available. It just might not be bound in leather and,
yeah. And requiring it to be bound in leather. Come on.
Now, I could see that as a durability, but I think the whole thing still stinks of somebody picked something like, let's write a rule that requires that.
Somebody in the school board has invested money in the company or bought stock or something.
And King James. I mean, what kind of monster? King James. ESV. That's where it's at.
ESV or NIV, yeah.
You guys are talking about things.
You're talking about the newly inspired version.
So ESV and NIV are different.
You have to
versions.
explain it to the listener.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay,
but a lot of people listen and don't.
ESV and NIV are different versions of the Bible. It's how it's written. It's the kind of language that's used. ESV, I think, is the English Standard Version. Yeah. NIV is a New International Version, and they're basically written in a more common.
Well, ESV is like more of a phrase by phrase transliteration. Yeah. You get some that are. Oh, we can go into depth.
Well, yeah, but just in general, they're easier to read.
And why did they create the King James version? There was something about that. I don't remember. Something about history.
The King James wanted to make wanted to make sure that he could get a divorce. Yeah.
Let me change the Bible so I can get a divorce, and I want her head.
That's where the Protestant church came from. By the way, I just covered that in my.
Did it?
Yes.
I thought it was Martin Luther.
Well, there was the Protestant Reformation, which is different than why England adopted the Protestant church.
I was going to say Church of England is a different thing than a Protestant church.
Right. Well, yeah, but England adopted the Protestant faith over the Catholic faith because he wanted to get a divorce, and the Catholic Church wouldn't allow him to do it.
Yep.
So, again, let's just be honest. I mean, I know I'm a Christian and everything, but I'm also not going to lie to you and tell you that I don't know where this stuff came about from. And by the way, I'm not going to a Catholic church.
I always felt that was one of the most hypocritical things ever. You sit there and you whatever church you're in, and you see them whip out the King James version. It's like, why? Like what? Why that version? Like, why'd you pick the one version of the Bible that was redesigned so the king could get a divorce?
Reconfigured.
Yeah, it always cracked me up. Somebody's going to preach to you about morality or whatever, and like, come on, dude.
Kevin Nelson said he has a copy of the Good News Bible. I love the Good News Bible. That was good. Yeah.
I like JJ off of What's Happening.
Pepper's exactly right. Pepper said the Bible is accessible worldwide. Republicans, how can we capitalize on this? That's exactly correct. The free market economy doing its thing. Trojo just gave himself a high five and ran out the door.
Dallas just won.
Did they win or did they take the lead?
No, it's 4th and goal with seconds left, and they just scored the touchdown.
No, there's still 26 seconds left.
Like I said, it was 4th and goal with seconds left.
All right. Trojo looks like he's about to.
Trojo, what do you got? It was 4th and goal. Down. Watching this Dallas game, of course, big Dallas fan about Dallas. With 26 seconds left, it was 4th and goal from the 4-yard line. Dallas just threw a touchdown to go up by 2.
But wait, it was 4th and goal, and they threw it.
Yeah,
lucky bastards.
Yeah,
they don't have a running back at all.
It's 19-17. Dallas is up right now. 20 seconds left. Pittsburgh is out of timeouts.
He looks excited, like politician just passed a law that all schools must be Dallas fans.
That's
and
right.
He's selling the jerseys.
That's a great kind of analysis, right? It would be the exact same thing. We require you to root for the Cowboys, but you have to have a specific Cowboy jersey, and that jersey is only made by one company in Texas. It would be the exact same thing. All right. In 6 minutes at the top of the hour, we'll get into start talking about what's going on in the Appalachians and with the hurricane.
That nonsense has been happening in politics forever.
Oh, contraire. Let's talk further. Board of Education. Where do you think we get our textbooks from? Texas. They have a committee that decides the national, curriculum, basically.
Yes, Phil.
Holly says football isn't a religion. Really?
Well,
it is really
in Texas. Football, Texas, Arkansas, and down in that area, football is a religion.
Hey,
it's almost mandatory.
We plan events based on where the Seahawks are playing.
And I was just going to say, football's not a religion. I think that's a personal decision. So
I'm going to tell you right now, too. I was at church today.
That's the most religious I get on Sundays.
I was at church today and I sang, so I had to be there for both services. I will tell you right now, the 9 o'clock service was a whole lot more packed than the 10:30 service. You know why that is? Because 9 o'clock was before the football game started, and 10:30 is in the middle of the first window of games.
Now, to be fair, for Holly's right, it is not an actual religion, but it has religious-like parts. Please, Holly, we're joking.
The fact that Phil just agreed with Holly tells me that there's an asteroid headed straight to Earth.
Well, that was covered in the book of Third Opinions.
And that we're all about to die.
In a fire.
With Paul.
Actually, that's in Revelations. But anyway.
Could leave that alone. All right. I don't want to start.
Those pretzels are habit.
I don't want to start a topic before top of the hour.
So how about them abortions?
You mean baby murder and bastages?
I hear in some states it's working out.
How about them abortions? Like it's a football team. God.
Give me an A. Hey!
No, not a fucking invitation,
no. Kevin, no.
Should it be a big red letter A? Wait, that's another book.
Whoa. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and trust me when I say this, you ain't want people. Kevin to be plastered with little letters all over.
Would not be.
Oh, he's got lots of his own little letters, I hear.
Oh. Well, I according to some people, I have no integrity, and I'm a dishonest liar. I didn't move to Idaho.
I thought the word was narcissist.
I was a narcissist. That's true.
No, not were. Is.
I didn't move to Idaho, but whatever.
I mean, here's the thing.
Was it just you or was it everybody?
It was everybody but Paul.
Everybody but Paul?
Yeah.
But he couldn't have been talking about me because I wasn't here.
He literally is the white Oprah. You're a narcissist and you're a narcissist and you're a narcissist.
I mean, I thought it was more like F you. You're cool. F you. We're done. Good night.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, basically.
I'm going to call him the white Oprah from now on. Okay.
Who's that?
Ben Compton.
Oh.
He did it publicly, so I can totally talk about it. He said all of us are narcissists.
No,
except
he said you
Paul.
were.
No, he said you are the only person on the show that's not a narcissist.
I wasn't on the show, so he could not be talking about me.
You were when he was here.
I'd already left. I wasn't even
took a pot shot at him earlier.
I wasn't even here at the show when he tried to do his own show. How'd that go for him?
I love Kevin, but man, he is going way stepping out, trying to take the blame off of him. Like take the inference off of Kevin and put it on everybody.
No, you can put it on. No,
do you know how narcissistic you got to be to do that, Kevin?
Pretty narcissistic.
I'm gonna say we're all narcissists in some way.
Holly said that acknowledging the problem is the first step. Exactly, Holly. I'm waiting for you to acknowledge it as well.
Is there 12 steps to this one?
That's a great question. It's all part of a 12-step program. All right, when we come back, we're going to break down what's going on in regards to the Biden-Harris administration's response.
I mean, how they're using weather control to steer hurricanes toward the red states?
I'm going to ask you that question, by the way.
Oh, my God.
Because there are people that are saying that's a thing.
I know Marjorie Taylor Greene said something about that.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene needs to go back on her medication. But we're going to talk about the whole scenario,
She
right?
is definitely outspoken.
The response,
definitely.
FEMA funding,
to get started on some
Elon
medication.
Musk, the entire conversation. We're going to have that right after the top of the hour news if you're on AM. If you're on Facebook, we'll check out some of your comments in chat. We'll probably cry a little bit at how ignorant some of you people are, and then we'll get rolling again. So stick around. More of the Outlaw Radio Network. K-Dog, Paul, Tom, Trojo, Lori, Dennis, Phil, and you.
Hey, listen.
After this.
Okay, we're break. Dude,
We're not on break
You
yet.
got to start being.
See, I brought in the Gardettas for everybody. I'm a kind,
These
gracious.
fucking things are addictive.
I know, aren't they great? And I was gonna buy just the rye bread pieces because that's what I love out of this.
Facebook. We need my fair share.
But don't take all the rye bread pieces, you little Nazi.
Oh
God.
the pretzels. Those are.
Laura, you almost yanked that whole thing down again. What in the hell are you doing? Yeah, we're on Facebook right now. Can you slide that back a little bit? You're making me nervous.
For once, I knew I didn't that up, so I.
Oh, you weren't here when she did it before.
She knocked it
She
out.
stepped away and she pulled that whole thing onto the floor. Whose
Hold
phone is
on.
that? Oh, is it Phil's?
Jeremy's.
Oh, Jeremy's. People in Dallas are excited. They're actually calling their relatives. We won a game. We're not losers this week. All right. Comments in chat really quick. Margie said, so required subjects of all religions is coming. No, it's not. Because the left-leaning states don't want religions in school at all, and the right-leaning states only want their religion in schools. I don't think you'll ever. And plus, how do you address all the religion? I'd be cool with like your senior year in high school taking a world religions class. I took one in my bachelor's degree. I took a class in world religions. They talked a little about Judaism, a little bit about Christianity, a little bit about Muslim, about sheiks, all of that, right? I'd be okay with that. It's kind of like a global overview of all religions. I'd be fine with that. Phil?
Now, do they cover the Pastafarians?
Mine didn't.
Yeah, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's a thing.
I thought you said Rastafarians. Okay, no, there was no
Pastafarians.
No, Tom.
I don't know. My observation on that would be, I mean, college. You're talking about anthropology at that point. I mean, just cultural anthropology.
It was an elective for me, so I didn't have to take it in college. I chose to because I thought it'd be interesting.
Oh, it's fascinating.
And now I'm taking a Bible and theology master's program. So clearly, I wasn't opposed to it after I did that one class. Other comments? Why did you roll your eyes at me, Paul? Elizabeth says, I think Holly has a crush on Kevin. She likes to get you upset a lot. I don't think she has a crush on me. I think she's kind of an intellectual dominatrix. Yeah.
Lucky for you, that's just what you like.
Well, Holly said Ben Compton called other people narcissists. That's rich. Okay. I don't even know. I'm just going to read the comment and leave it there. All right. Lilet, oh man, I haven't heard that moron in a long time. I assume she's talking about Ben Compton. Okay. Holly said, weird that they can't see the comment. Did Elizabeth block Holly, or is our page being wonky again? I don't think Elizabeth blocked, but maybe. Elizabeth, would you acknowledge in chat if you did or did not block Holly? Here's the other thing I'm going to address real quick too. Please don't ask us to throttle people in the chat and be like, we're sick of listening to Holly. We can't tune into the show anymore. You can block them. You don't have to see her comments in chat. Don't ask us to do your hard work for you. If you're not a grown enough adult to block the people you don't want to hear, then don't expect me to do it for you. I'm not throttling anybody in chat because I want this to be a free flow of ideas, even if I don't agree with all of them. And that's what you should want to.
We're totally in that Elon Musk camp.
I had a friend from church. I had to unfollow. I didn't unfriend him. Unfollow him on Facebook because I was, she's up there in the 23rd running for school district. God, I love her, but gosh, she like really draws me to disagree with things.
Yep. A lot of people unfollow me.
Be grown up.
Yeah, a lot of people follow friends with me on Facebook, but don't follow me. But I mean it. Like honestly, if you don't want to,
they just can't stand your calves.
The only time I'll block anybody from chat is if they're really spewing racist stuff. like really racist stuff, then I'll kick it because
we
I don't
watched
have
some
any.
spammers.
Yeah, well, spammers,
Yeah.
but that's not a real person. That's a 12-year-old Russian living in their mom's basement. But I mean, if somebody's in
Doubtful.
there being really racist or something like that, I would probably advocate.
They
to block
usually
them.
only have one floor flats.
But we would make that decision as a group. Like one of us is not going to block somebody in chat unless it's a spammer.
One of these kids.
Are you saying we have a group conscience? Maybe our
we do.
12th editions.
Yeah, we're the Politburo. That should make everybody happy on the left.
All right.
Outlaw Radio, back after this.
You're listening to the Outlaw Radio Network.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's all right.
I'm Ben Compton, and living in Washington was just too hard.
A bunch of a-holes.
All right.
Thank you for listening. Our fearless leader once again has decided to just go off on his own tangent.
My own narcissistic tangent.
Reminder that Kevin's Chambers views do not necessarily reflect that of Outlaw Radio Network.
But they do reflect anybody who has a brain. Thank you. All right. Paul,
There's a lot of implication in that statement.
Yes, Kevin.
Where do you want to start with this thing that's going on with the hurricane?
Yeah.
Because literally, I mean, the hurricane itself was bad. And by the way, if you're in Florida, just get the F out. Because a hurricane hit Tampa last week, and another hurricane is going to hit Tampa tomorrow. Now, it's not going to go up the same route. It's going to go left to right across the state. But if you're in Tampa, Jesus clearly hates you.
So there are some interesting angles within this conversation. I'll give you one, for example. I brought it up in a joking manner. Oh, they're steering the hurricane towards the red states. There is a piece of equipment up in Alaska called HARP. HARP can be used for incredibly minor, and this is just, now granted, this is all just the information that's been put out. HARP is run by the government. But there is not just evidence, but there are things that go with HARP where they know that it can do slight weather modification. By slight, I mean very, very slight, like dissipating a cloud, just like they can seed clouds. They can, if they need it to rain more, they can drop I believe it's silver nitrate into the clouds, so there is weather manipulation and modification. Having said that, it's not enough to steer a hurricane.
Well, and in some parts of the world, it's gone really, really poorly.
What has?
Weather modification.
Well, all I can say,
like in the UAE, they've caused their own flooding before.
Yeah,
I believe it.
Yeah,
you know, if you're in a place that needs some water and you end up producing way too much.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That's not what happened here. This was
No.
all Mother Nature.
Yes.
This was not man-caused global warming because we eat too much beef and cows fart too much.
You're not going to steer a hurricane.
We're in a cyclical nature with regards to climate change. It's cyclical, just like the seasons. It's involved with the solar maximum and the solar minimum and the solar activity and everything else that goes. Hold on, Phil. I'll let you talk in a second, but I'm literally in the middle. Hold on. Just want you to know I see you. These are all very real things. The hurricane that hit was very real. Now, I'll be the first one to sit here and say, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. I find it odd that before the last election, there was a pandemic and the rules were changed in half the states to allow for types of voting to occur in which there were some irregularities. Now, a month before this election, a massive hurricane hits a bunch of red states. Yeah, it's odd, but it's probably not related. But it's odd, you know? It's not troubling in a, oh my God, who's behind this kind of way. It's troubling because there's a lot of people that have been hurt, lost their lives, lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's troubling. That's a legitimate issue. Now, we've known for years, basically since Katrina, that FEMA has had issues.
Yep.
Absolutely, FEMA has had issues. What bothers me about the situation down there is that you've got people down in North Carolina with their own cell phones that are filming stuff that's going on. Glenn Beck did a great piece. If you guys haven't seen it, go onto his Twitter page, look up Glenn Beck and Mercury Media, and look at the conversation that he had with some FEMA folks down there. FEMA's playing it off like we're doing everything right. President Biden went on television, and we can play the clip in a little bit if you guys want, where he was asked by a reporter, what do you think about the storm? Can anybody guess what President Biden's first words out of his mouth were when he was asked what his thoughts were on the storm?
What storm?
What storm?
What storm, yeah.
Dude, you're not dead yet. I mean, you're close. I get that, but you should still know what storm we're talking about. The southern quarter of your country just got pummeled by a nasty bitch from down south. You should have a clue, you know? So he then followed it up with, well, the people down there are really happy and everybody's getting what they want. Say, what? That made no sense because it's patently false. And people can take the mindset that, well, FEMA's getting people everything that they need and you're not there and you shouldn't be judging. I'm not judging anybody. I'm going off of what the people on the ground are uploading to the internet, what they are saying. People who are, when you're watching videos of a herd of cows go floating down a river trying to save themselves, when you've got videos of entire valleys where the road, not a section of the road, but miles of road are gone and all the bridges. And you're telling private folks with their own helicopters, you can't fly in this space. Look, when Katrina hit, they brought in the military. They brought in the goddamn military. Why aren't they doing it now? I don't have a reason or explanation for that. Because this destruction is over a much broader, much more wider area with much more harsh and rough terrain.
Yep.
So why independent individuals are being stopped from administering aid and help is beyond me. A couple of back horseman groups that I'm a member of are very openly discussing it. A lot of them have taken pack animals and horses into the area because that's the only way to get in and out because the roads are gone. And they're openly saying we expect the death toll when this is all done to be unknown and at least over several thousand. And that's a lot more realistic than what we're hearing, I think, right now.
I agree with most of what you said. I understand why the government is not letting third parties in because it runs the risk of other people going into there and then they need to be rescued. Or they need to be saved or what. So I agree with the military. I think the military should be sent in. They're trained for stuff like this, search and rescue teams, military units, all of that. But I would like Elon Musk, I want to go in and deliver
he did.
Internet stuff.
He delivered 140 internet units.
Right, but then he got stopped right after.
I haven't heard that. I don't know.
I believe
I do not know that
they was trying to stop him, but I don't know if they actually did.
I do know that they're like Glenn Beck when he broadcast his media bit, he did it off of a Starlink unit that was donated by Elon Musk. So obviously some have made it in. But here's what I would say to you, Kevin, your point about, well, I can understand the government not letting certain people in, except unless they have money and influence, right? Because Walmart just took 140 trucks in there full of supplies and materials.
Again, I'm going to assume, although that's dangerous with this administration, that there was a level of coordination between Walmart and that size of a relief effort and individual groups coming in kind of on their own. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's would be my concern, right? Would be you send in like the Horseman group. If they're not coordinated with search and rescue teams, they don't really know where they're going into. If they're from another place, they may not even really know the terrain. Are you now setting yourself up to have to rescue additional people that shouldn't have been in there in the first place?
Exactly.
But they bit off more than they could chew. And now, you know what I mean? That would be my concern. And so I would understand if FEMA or the Fed said, we don't want you guys going in there. It's not safe. You don't know what you're doing. We can't coordinate with every small group that wants to do this. Leave this to us. Are they doing an adequate job?
Not
oh,
even
for
close.
F's sake, they're not.
So therefore, ignore them, folks. Go in and do what you got to do. F FEMA, F the government. Be a real goddamn American and go in there and do what needs to be done on your own. Don't
But
look to them for leadership. Go ahead.
I understand your sentiment, but there are groups. There are groups that are already approved through the federal government,
There are.
through FEMA, and they are already active. So Samaritan Purse, who is close by, they have brought in their international kits for safe water, toiletries, all of that. They've been dropping off. There's other mercy missions, I think, that train and go international. They've been going in and rescuing people. You know, I think there was a 94-year-old woman that couldn't leave, couldn't drive, couldn't get out. And so they were able to get to her after 6 days. And so she's fine. They're, you know, taking care of her. There was another family that needed insulin and they were able to drop it off to them. They were fine, except for their road is out. So they can't get anywhere.
And that's like that everywhere. If you've, I don't know how many people here been to Appalachia.
Right.
Anybody been to Appalachia? Tom, you've been? I mean, you're probably having fun at the whiskey stills. Appalachia is more difficult, more rough terrain than here.
Yeah.
You know, here we talk about everywhere we drive, it's around the water and everything is up a hill or down a hill, you know, very little flat land. It's considerably worse there.
Yeah.
We're talking everything is either in a valley or on a hill. Everything. And this is not easy terrain. People live on the tops of mountains, on the backside, 2 terrain features over. Like there is so many people that are out of sight, out of mind. And that if the people that live there don't take their own steps and take their own actions, archaeologists in 500 years are going to dig up bodies in a pile of cars somewhere, right? Because they never got to them. That's so. I'm simply saying, it's folks. You got to be more self-reliant on your neighbors and on your family. You're a fool if you wait for the government. You're a fool.
That's awful gold of you, Paul.
No,
no, he's going to talk about how right I am.
No, I actually I was going to agree with him. I mean,
of course he was.
I think the best example of how inept the government is when you go in and compare similar industries, right? So compare SpaceX to NASA. SpaceX is months and months ahead of NASA. The FAA is still trying to finish the paperwork from 3 launches back. So the government will never be as efficient as private industry.
Never. And why is that? We know the answer, but Tom, can you explain it?
Well, bureaucracy and government waste.
That's right. And if you're a bureaucrat and you're working for the government, you have very little motivation to do the job effectively, efficiently, quickly, and under budget.
Right.
Phil?
Never under budget.
Never under budget.
Never.
I mean, two current things. Good old Elon. 2 people get stranded up there with that little Boeing fiasco. You know, they send a SpaceX.
And let me ask you this: do you guys consider Boeing a government organization or a private organization?
Yes.
Yeah.
What he said.
And then on another front, Elon, through his influence of Starlink.
The same thing is true of SpaceX, though.
Talk in the microphone. We have listeners.
Sorry.
It's over there.
Then you got to wait.
Then
Boeing
don't talk.
is technically a private company on the stock market, but they are firmly entrenched.
Oh, they got
with
their
the government contracts,
Oh, yeah.
especially the Black Ops military projects. Firmly entrenched.
Right. I mean, SpaceX has kind of the same thing. I mean, they get large amounts of money from the government to, go up and rescue Boeing astronauts.
Now, the other thing Starlink did is if you got a Starlink unit in the affected area, it will simply work because the thing's got a GPS. It knows where it is. Starlink basically,
all you got to have is power.
Top down. It trickled down from the boss. This is what we're doing.
Be careful. You will trigger leftists when you use the phrase trickle down anything.
Is it possible I intended that? Just saying. And so, I mean,
comments will trickle down in the chat room.
I see what you did there.
The grassroots volunteers flying stuff in amongst all their other stuff, bring in a couple of Starlink units. If they have power available, then they can get some communication up and going.
There was a guy when Glenn Beck's crew got in there. The FEMA truck had gotten there the day before, and so they walked up to the FEMA crews and asked them. I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not quoting, but he effectively went up to the FEMA folks and he says, "Okay, you're here. We'll try to get the word out." But they're like, "How do people know you're here?" you couldn't make this up. Saturday Night Live could not have written a worse script for this, because the guy responds, says they use their phones and they fill out the app. He's like, what?
Right.
He's like, yeah, they go on their phone and they fill out the app, and then they get on our list, and then we know they're there and we know where they're at, and then they're on the list and we can get them money and get them help. And he's like, they've been out of power for a week, dude. And his response was, people are resilient. They use their cars. Like,
the roads are out.
To quote
how
Paul,
many of them people you think lost their cars, man?
to quote Paul, read the room.
For sure. Sure. And so it was just, and like, I mean, it was a clear indication of how this was not very well thought. Like on paper, it sounded great. Hey man, everybody that's in the storm area, just fill out our app, okay? You'll be fine, and then we'll get to you. We'll have your address. Wait, there's 30 miles of road missing? Crap, how are we gonna get to them? You know, like that simple thought just gone. Nothing.
This is just a prime example of right here, right now, how unprepared the United States really is. If
one EMP,
one EMP,
and then only the strong will survive. It'll be the worst parts of the Bible, man.
Yeah, I mean, God, man, I mean, bottom line is they just saw this storm coming.
Yeah,
you knew. I mean, it's just like Katrina. You sounded the alarm too late for people to try to evacuate for Katrina.
Yeah, especially from the lower boroughs.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, you saw this storm coming, and it was double the size of what Katrina was. It was a cat 4.
And the stupidity, and you're right about that, Tro, because the stupidity. There was a plastics factory in Asheville, North Carolina, and the people kept saying, "Well, can we go home now?" And so the management was being really progressive Democratish about this, because they were like, well, it's just raining outside. Everything's fine. You don't have to leave yet. Well, they weren't telling them they had to stay.
Right.
But they weren't letting them go. And by the time management told them it was okay to go, it was when one of the employees came in and said, there's floodwaters in our parking lot.
Right.
So they said, okay, you guys can go ahead and go. They shut everything down. And as they go outside, 11 employees got swept away in the flood.
Of course, that also comes down. And this is where common sense comes in. Because
we're Americans, we lack that so much.
This is where common sense comes in, and it's like where I work right now. I was having a conversation with someone, and I told him, it's like, you know what, you can choose to do what you want to do as a job, but don't become a slave to your job where you're going to allow someone to control your life so much that you're afraid to tell them, no, I'm not doing that, because you're afraid to lose your job. In this particular situation, common sense should have kicked in, and they should have just looked at their boss and said, you know what?
Yeah, I'm
leaving. To hell with you. Yep. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Like, I'm making plastic.
Yeah. I'm done. I'm out. Why am I going to stick
Carlin.
around? Why am I going to stick
around? The
Earth
only allowed humans to exist because the Earth wanted plastic. The Earth plus plastic. You know, I mean, it just how do you look out in the parking lot and say, "Hey, there's a foot of flood water. Is it okay to go now?" Mother, I'm going.
I'm not asking you permission to leave. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Hold on. Is it possible? Let me ask this question.
No, it's not possible.
Is it possible that the Biden administration didn't really screw up?
I don't know.
That this was a natural
weather
disaster.
Manipulation.
No. Stop. That this was a natural. This was a natural disaster that nobody really could have foreseen, right? We've never seen a hurricane travel like that, cause that kind of damage in the Appalachians before. Is it just one of those things that you can't plan for everything, and that FEMA's not really to blame? The White House isn't really to blame. We didn't see this coming, and we have to learn from it so it doesn't happen. Yeah. It's not like New Orleans. Like New Orleans, nobody should have been surprised that Katrina wrecked New Orleans.
You mean that a 14-foot storm surge swamped an area that was below sea level by 3 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody should have been surprised about New Orleans. But this, to me, feels so unique in its trajectory. And you know what I mean?
Hurricanes are not unique to Florida.
That's correct. And
not.
But the fact that this one tracked like literally up the Appalachians. I mean, it almost like it followed a roadmap. So it just pummeled the Appalachians the whole way up.
The problem with the Appalachians is the topography.
Mm-hmm.
That's why things happened the way it did there. You're talking about steep mountains and valleys.
Right.
And what do those do to rainwater? They funnel it.
Right.
Now You have never heard me say in the last week and a half or week, however many days it's been, that, quote, the government is at fault, or Joe Biden is at fault, or Kamala Harris is at fault.
Even though Joe Biden didn't know where it was at or what was going on,
well,
he's still not at fault.
Listen, their problem, and the reason they're taking a lot of heat is because they're morons. Because Kamala Harris is running for president and thought it would be cute to send out prayers and wishes for the people of Palestine while the people in North Carolina were drowning. Stupid. That is a stupid woman. I know what a woman is. She's a woman. That's stupid.
Are you
and you know what? And she deserves every ounce of criticism for sending out a goddamn dumb message like that while people in her country are dying. And that's just the tip of it. FEMA, I do understand Lori's point. And I think that in normal circumstances, like in an area that's relatively accessible from all over, like, I don't know, Florida, because it's flat, or parts of Georgia, Mississippi, whatever, areas that are flat and easily accessible. It's a different situation to say we need to close down these areas, right? But you're talking about a region where thousands of people are trapped behind incredibly rough terrain. So when you've got people with helicopters and horses who are willing to come in and help, you let them do it, because FEMA clearly at this point has got to realize they're not able to keep up. Lori.
I agree with you on that part. I think regarding the airspace, if you have someone flying and they're not used to doing any type of a rescue mission, they're going to make risks that they're not prepared for.
Yep.
And that they probably don't know their helicopter well enough to do.
All I can say is that I would hope that they would. You're right. But how are we ever going to know?
I know, but that's where FEMA has failed, is to say, hey, we can use you guys to start staging supplies where it's stable, start helping us get the supplies into a stable area, a park or whatever, and let the mercy missions of the world and Samaritan's Purse do their thing and go help people. And I think that FEMA also should have said, hey, we're overwhelmed. We need you. You've worked with us before. The Red Cross has used you, whatever.
Maybe that's a big part of it. Ego, right? The id of a group like FEMA, where they're like, no, we've got this. No, you don't. Yes, we do. No, you don't. Right?
Nobody's.
It's too big for any one
leadership.
group.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And those are the criticisms that Biden and Harris are coming under right now, is the lack of leadership top down coming through.
Phil, go ahead, Phil. And then Tom.
I was going to say, I mean, and Holly's asking, well, what do we propose if it's not the government big system? I mean, the ICS, the incident command structure can handle this properly implemented, but the trick is they got to know how to scale it up fast enough. They got to get, you got the NGOs, the Samaritan's Purse, Red Cross, all those. We're going to be in the break as I try to explain this, but it scales up. But part of it is getting the boots on the ground. People need, like,
hold that thought for a second, because I'm going to push back on you a little bit about that, and Tom's going to comment as well. So we'll continue this on the Facebook side, but I'm going to push back on your comment in just a second. So hold on. For those of you on AM, enjoy the commercial. For those of you on Facebook, we'll keep this conversation going, and we'll wrap it around the bottom of the hour. We'll keep it going as well. Football picks coming up in about 25 minutes or so.
No, dude, let's not wait until the end of the show to do football picks.
You want to do football picks and then go back to political talk?
No, I would just finish this conversation.
That's what we're going to do. That's what I just said.
Okay.
God bless it, man. Outlaw Radio. Some people's kids. All right. So really quick, Phil, you said that the incident command structure can be rolled out if needed. I would ask you, based on what? I'm asking you based on what?
It's standard training.
Hold on, let me finish my question. Based on what evidence do you have that supports that? We saw what happened in Hawaii, where FEMA couldn't coordinate anything to stop the wildfires in Hawaii, made it worse. Katrina was an unmitigated disaster. Every time one of these hurricanes hits one of these areas, they're supposedly caught off guard. I think the whole plan is broken.
Agreed. Have you? Okay, the failures of these agencies is one thing. Having studied, ICS 100, 200, 700, 800, gone through training, trying to, we work to understand. I mean, the local training is, we're taught, number one, you take care of your family first, your community, your general neighborhood before you get involved in the bigger thing. I think what's missing is people and their personal responsibility. Everyone just thinks the government will take care of us.
100%.
That's not FEMA's fault exactly. I mean, they got their own ineptitudes,
right?
But the incident command structure though can still work despite FEMA's ineptitudes.
Well,
I mean, you get people doing what they do well.
Phil, I think that the criticism is that FEMA is actively stopping people from coming in and assisting. Because you're right. I think that's where they need to realize that it is too big for them, and they need to be open to other people coming in.
Yeah. Again, I don't have an issue with them not letting private groups in. Like I understand this.
You would if you were there, I think.
Well, of course I would.
Remember the Cajun Navy and Katrina?
Yes, 100%. Yep.
All right, hold on. Outlaw Radio, we're going to come back on AM. We'll keep this going. Mega Talk Radio Network. We'll check your comments in chat as well, where all you people can tell me how right I am. Back after this.
Outlaw Radio Network. I'm Brandy Cruz, host of the Undivided Podcast, and you're listening to Outlaw Radio. Good luck.
All right, Outlaw Radio, 10:30, final half hour of the show on regular time. K-Dog, Paul, Tom, Trojo, Lori, Dennis, Phil, and the rats that live in the ceiling. Tom, you had a comment in regards to this whole conversation.
I think really it's just the fact that I don't think people quite understand where FEMA fell down. FEMA screwed up when they weren't there to properly fund things. That's their problem, because
that is one of the criticisms is
right.
that funding has been diverted to help pay for illegal immigrants.
Right, and that's a whole different conversation. But
is it?
On the money side, because on the boots on the ground side, that is all really handled by local people. You know, I used to be part of Kitsap County Search and Rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, we trained in our environment, in our neighborhood. You know, we know the areas, we know the trails, we know where people get lost, we know the dangerous places, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I've been part of KSAR forever. But when I was part of it, you know, I mean, we trained when the weather was good, we trained when the weather was crap. And those small groups like that coordinate with FEMA and with local, you know, sheriffs, et cetera, et cetera. So the failure on the part of FEMA wasn't for the rescue efforts, because I mean, the disaster there in the Southeast was, I mean, it was big. I mean, we already know that. The failure is being able to fund it all and get the big heavy lifting parts into play. The small community stuff, the communities took care of themselves.
And maybe there could be some argument to be made for FEMA falling more under state jurisdiction for some things, because like Tom, you referenced, they know where the trouble spots are. They know where the trails are. You know, the state would probably be a far better kind of arbiter of things like that.
Yes.
I think it's too big. I think it's too big of an issue now. I think these natural disasters, when you're talking about hitting, this is different than it was even 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because you're hitting these high population centers with millions upon millions upon millions of people, and we're seeing storms that are stronger and stronger than they've ever been. Now, you can say that's because of global warming, and you could argue the creation of that or whatever. I'm not going to get into that conversation.
They're stronger than we've seen in recorded history.
Yes, but again, in our recorded history, they're the strongest that we've ever seen. And meanwhile, we're working with a system that is misfunded, mismanaged, and a political hot potato. And every single time we face a major emergency, a major natural disaster, they drop the ball. Every single time, Trojo.
The government will screw it up every time. Yes.
Every time.
I agree.
So, which brings us back to the question that Paul asked earlier. Why hasn't the military been activated to go into these spots? Because if no one else, if you don't have private sectors that's trained to go into these spots and set up for emergencies, the one thing that we all do, that we know, that those of us who've served, the military has the capability to go in. They're trained for rough terrain. Mm-hmm. They're trained for rescue. They're trained to go in and set up towers in a matter of minutes, hours, if not minutes, where people will be able to have communications. So why haven't the military been activated to go in and actively help these areas that's struggling with the people?
Paul, let me ask you a question.
I can answer that.
Is part of that posse comitatus in regards to natural disasters and things? Does that play into it at all?
No, that's you can't be used as military. Active duty military cannot be used as a police force. Big difference between that and.
But the National
Guard can.
Active duty military can be used for helping to rescue people. They did it during Katrina.
I've worked with National Guard as search and rescue. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact, they've even been used. You can stretch that out a little bit. Like it was active duty military forces that took down David Koresh's compound in Waco, Texas.
Wow,
you know?
which is a different creature. I mean, right now the questions are, why isn't the Guard in there and
they should be. They should be, especially when it comes to flying in helicopters.
Right. Well, they probably are. But again, I mean,
if they are, nobody's reporting it now. Active duty troops were brought in from the base in Carolina.
Yeah, my only critique is that it's not going to be done quickly or efficiently because I mean the National Guard is part of the government, and the government's gonna screw it up.
I think that there's a difference when you say the government. I'm thinking FEMA, right? I'm not thinking of the military. That's a different animal because well, maybe to you it is. To me, it is not. And I say that because when you maintain a certain level of readiness and you get a phone call that says we need to go rescue 10,000 people in the mountains of North Carolina, there's a big difference between FEMA taking its time to get there and unloading their trucks and getting set up than if you go to the 101st Airborne and say, grab those choppers, we're heading to North Carolina. That'll happen in a matter of hours. So there's just, from a readiness standpoint, there is a massive difference.
It should happen in a matter of hours. I still don't agree that the government is as efficient as it should be.
Oh, they're not.
No,
not a chance.
And here's a larger question you have to ask yourself. Is there a reason we're not sending the military in?
I have no idea because if they did send in some active duty troops from the base in North Carolina, but that was not many.
Yeah. So is there a reason we're not sending more military forces in there? And I ask that question because there's only a couple answers, right? Answer number one is we're not sending them in because we don't believe that they're needed. Okay, well, that's clearly not true. Answer number two is we're not sending them in because we don't have enough to spare. Answer number three is we're not sending them in case we need to deploy them elsewhere. And you know what I mean? Like none of the other reasons.
There is a large contingent of people that are making another accusation that I don't think you can ignore.
Which is?
They're not. Look, there's an election.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, I know you don't like it.
I didn't like.
But how do you think
I didn't
the
agree
people
with it anymore about Katrina either? When it was Bush.
But I'm not saying it's true because I don't have any idea if it's true or not. But it is an accusation that's being made. Is that North Carolina in particular is expected to vote Republican with an election in less than a month?
And the part of North Carolina that got socked the worst was the Republican West Side,
without a doubt.
But don't you think? But you think at this point? I'm sorry, Phil.
It's okay.
But you think at this point in junction, if they did go ahead and activate the military to go in and help, would that not reflect better on the Democrats than it would the Republicans?
It would.
You would think that
it would reflect better on the ruling party right now, which is the Democrats. But they're choosing to handle it very nonchalant. It seems.
No, Phil, you done had your hand up for a while, man. Let's
really quick, Phil. The people in chat are saying, but there are military there. I have video, and Biden put in 500 more troops. We're not arguing that the military is there.
No, in fact, I just
Paul
said that.
just said that they were there. Yep. What we're saying is there's not a large enough contingent of military. If Biden's answer is I'm going to send in 500 more troops, when you look at the size and scope of that devastation, 500 troops is a drop in a bucket. They need thousands of personnel and helicopters and trucks and jeeps and air support and all the logistics that the military can put together to make 500 extra troops is a drop.
They can do it fast.
Yeah, Phil.
They're going to put in massive. They're not going to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but the sense is they're not going to be agile. I mean, you got personal pilots on their dime bringing in resources. They're risking their equipment and their lives, and they know it. And if the government says we don't want you in here because we don't want to, they know what they're doing. They're pilots.
Yeah. Again, I'll never get on that argument. Like I get what you're saying, and Paul said the same thing.
I mean, I've seen the coverage, the video. The people are in the area marking X's for LZ so they know where to help. They've scoped out the area. This is a safe place to land. Okay, we need more help. Okay, we need a bigger LZ for like a Blackhawk who eventually might show up. But we get little ones, little pilots.
I know.
They're coming, and the people, the community, they got to, I've also spent time listening to the radio chatter. The radio community has been busy helping at a local level.
Phil,
the government needs to help the big stuff, but they're not going to get into the little stuff.
I get it. I don't disagree with you at all. Like, I hear what you're saying, and what you're saying makes perfect sense. And Paul said it earlier. Well, if you were there, you'd feel differently, probably, because I'd be there. But from a logistical standpoint, if you're trying to coordinate massive recovery efforts and relief efforts and food drops and the last thing you want to do is trying to be doing that without knowing what these small fringe groups are doing in the area. Not to mention the fact, they can't
just communicate.
They can't communicate.
Yeah,
they can't even communicate with each other.
The small groups pull it off.
No, but
the big groups are too big. They're not agile.
Right. So again, in your world, that idea would work if you weren't dealing with a federal government trying to oversee the whole thing.
What they probably struggle from, I imagine, is you got leadership who's like, we got it figured out, we were trained. Yeah, but you need to have the humility to say, I need to work with the local people. I need to figure out the people who are closest to the problem. And I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work with people who have that mentality. I need to work with the people who are closest to the problem. I mean, during the Amtrak thing, I remember, I think it was Liz. She was, overseeing the thing, but she's like, I got to work with the people who know what's going on. I don't have all the information. I need to get the information from the people who know what's going on.
I would argue, listen, I would say that I think you're right, but I would argue that all this stuff is stuff that has to happen before disaster, not during. So the states,
that's very helpful.
The states could coordinate some of this, like Paul talked about the horseback, the horse rider.
Yeah,
group,
the backcountry horseman.
So I would say if you're Jay Inslee or Bob Ferguson, whoever's or Reichert, he's not going to win. That was going to be governor. That you would plan this stuff out in advance. You would say, okay, we expect a major, massive freaking earthquake. So what of these individual groups can we network with?
We've been doing that.
Well, but again, that's when it should happen is beforehand.
Cascadia Rising. We've been
right. But what I'm saying is doing it in the middle of a disaster, like what they're doing in Tennessee and North Carolina, this is not the time to play let's work out logistics.
Yeah.
It all should have been done ahead of time.
It's time to save lives.
And by the way,
only have a little bit of time without water. They need water. People are
but
flying helicopters.
But I want to see
water.
But every National Guard unit in the adjoining state should have a plan in place when this kind of thing happens.
I can tell you there are 6,700 active or 6,700 National Guardsmen that have been activated and a total of 1,000 active duty troops. Now, to the point Phil was making and you were making about the Cascade subduction zone in the event of a major, we'll say an 8.5 to a 9.0 mega thrust quake, right? Because we don't know how far the tsunami is going to come in. We don't know what kind of damage we're going to sustain.
We have historical data though.
So yes, but we don't know literally what kind of damage it would still cause. We're estimating.
Pretty good idea.
Okay, Phil, does everything have to be an argument with you, dude?
No.
So, okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Anyway, point just being here is that you can take what's happening down in North Carolina. You can draw some parallels, like you're talking to Phil. His groups, they're actively planning ahead for this stuff. Now, I don't know if that was happening down in Carolinas, but think about it. 6,700 National Guardsmen, 1,000 active duty troops. Let's just pretend that the same number of troops get put here in just Western Washington should a 9.0 mega thrust quake occur. 6,700, 7,700 total military troops, they would be disappeared. You see what? One every mile,
right?
It's not enough troops to do any good. Maybe. Who knows?
How many? Just a real quick question, Paul, because I know you was there. I know you was there for the riots and the LA riots in 1992. How many National Guards was deployed there in that little short?
That's actually a really good question. We had a Humvee with 5 soldiers per intersection. So we had a real good lockdown on the portion of Los Angeles where we were stationed during that event. And, still to this day, it boggles my mind when you look at the stuff you saw on TV was like most of it. Like, it's not like the people were out in the in the peripherals everywhere doing
Right.
this stuff. It wasn't like that.
Can I give you one other piece of information?
No.
1,000 military members, active duty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Camp Lejeune is in North Carolina. Do you know how many active duty military are stationed at Camp Lejeune? 63,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say we got 1,000 that are in there,
Good drinking water.
now again, I'm not saying you send all 63,000, but you can definitely send more than 1,000. And the other part of this is to get back what I was saying with Phil about every single state should have a plan with their adjoining states. If you have a major emergency in North Carolina,
yep.
What states are close by that can help? Pennsylvania, Ohio, Tennessee. And when those things happen, it should be an automatic, mandatory National Guard on all those states are called out to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That stuff should be in line beforehand. So this isn't a Democrat or Republican thing because nobody's worked this out. But it should be like a no-brainer. How do we consolidate? We don't need FEMA to come in and stage stuff for an event or a disaster, because we have the National Guard that has units everywhere that should already have stuff staged.
You realize that the military has in their armor corps, they have bridge laying vehicles.
Yeah,
they could be out.
I had
there
a GI Joe when I
bridges.
was growing up that was a bridge. Remember that? Remember the GI Joe one with the foldable? Yeah, it was great.
But there's one thing that you guys are overlooking.
It figures we're men.
That Joe
No.
Biden can't remember what he had
No,
for
no,
breakfast
no,
this
no.
morning.
Well, I mean, the top-down leadership isn't there. But the other thing is,
You saying it's trickling down?
His leg.
Sorry, I took Phil's line.
anyways, Appalachian communities are very
Inbred.
distrustful of the government.
Yeah, distrustful that too.
Very distrustful. In fact, a lot of times
wanna regulate their
government
inbreeding.
agencies, doing some sort of welfare check on a family or whatnot, are met with guns. And so that is another thing. I'm not saying this about the hurricane, but
Mhm.
that is another level of
Distrust.
but also hesitancy.
North and South Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah.
North and South Carolina for sure.
Well, and what was the fringe Republican group? The JFK Jr. What was that group called?
Huh?
The fringe Republican group.
The remember the people that believe that President Trump was the Antichrist. He was going to save everybody, and JFK
The
Jr.
Antichrist was going to save everyone.
No, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I
The-
don't. What are you
We're
talking
talking
the
like
group that
QAnon or something?
QAnon, yeah.
Okay,
There's
QAnon,
a lot
okay.
of QAnon folk in the Appalachian area. That
Oh,
Really?
you know that
yeah.
for sure?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
How do you know that? They don't even have the internet.
They do too have the internet. They have AOL dial-up. Thank you very much.
You got mail.
For me to poop on. It's they.
Go ahead, Kevin. You can do it.
I lost it. It doesn't make any sense to me. And listen, I don't understand why it's so hard to hold your own party accountable.
Because
Like-
there's an election right now.
Like Lilet and Holly are really big supporters of the Democratic ticket,
and they have every right to be.
and they do. I'm not knocking that, but you can say, man, they've kind of mismanaged this.
If you can't acknowledge
say
that,
I mean,
can't. You have no hope of acknowledging your own biases.
And if there are, let's say our 1,000 troops are off. Let's say that what the number you got from that is like 5 days old, and now there's 10,000. Okay, there's 10,000. It's still not enough. It's
Right.
still not accomplishing the mission, and you have 63,000 active duty military just at Camp Lejeune alone, which does not take into account all the other Navy bases and Army bases and Marine Corps and Air Force and Coast Guard and maybe a Space Force base that are within a one-day flight of getting people over there to help. I mean, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of potential troops that could be mobilized that have not been.
Yep.
And that should be the question you're asking, is not, there's Army. Well, maybe there are military there, but it's clearly not enough.
Not enough.
And
Not even close to enough. And that's what it's so frustrating when you look at like 1,000.
Yeah.
You couldn't 1,000 troops wouldn't help Kitsap County in the event of a disaster.
And this isn't political to me. Like, we're not ripping on them because we're Democrats. We're not even necessarily ripping on the Biden and Harris administration, in as much as we are ripping FEMA and ripping the military for their inability to coordinate that and not having these plans already.
We're not ripping the military.
I am a little bit, because you would think that the DOD would have this as a plan.
But no, they don't. They can't do that.
Hold on. I disagree with you completely. If someone
they
hold on.
cannot make those decisions.
No, not this. But what I'm saying is, if the DOD thought about this in advance and said, we as an agency need to prepare for this, they could have drawn up contingency plans. They could have presented issues to Congress or to the White House. The Joint Chiefs of Staffs could have been briefed on this, and they could have talked about it all in advance.
Yes, but they train to standard based on what the civilian government prescribes to them. They don't. The government, the military doesn't sit back and say, "This month we're going to plan for war with Japan."
No. But what I'm saying is that, but they could have come out with a theory that this needs to be something we can address.
Well, we don't know that they haven't. But the National Guard is under the control of the governor, and the federal troops are under the control of the president, right? So none of those guys can do anything without being released, so to speak, by their commanding officers.
Let me ask you this pointed question, then Phil has a comment. Do you think our response would be more effective and more pinpoint if this was a massive earthquake in Haiti? Or a major hurricane that wiped out Puerto Rico?
To some degree, that is a valid argument, because that is something that would be headed up by military personnel, which would be more efficient and bring more power and more things to bear quicker. So I think that's a valid point.
Tom, did you have? Oh, sorry, Phil.
It might be an intellectual, possibly maybe philosophical point here.
He said philosophical.
Yeah, Phil. We try to think if we just had the bigger government, we could do that. If we just did this more, we could and at some point it feels like the weight of the infrastructure of the government just is too much. And it's like these United States being distributed. We got a federal government, and how well is it going as we grow this federal government? We were doing pretty good before the turn of the 2 centuries.
Have you gone full Democrat on us now? You're like, we need a bigger government?
No, I'm saying we don't. I'm saying the bigger it gets, it doesn't quite work. It's like the people in their thing with socialism and communism. Yeah. Well, you just didn't do it right. You just got to just a little bit no, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And is it possible, as much as we think we can brain our way through a solution, there isn't one? Is it possible there isn't one? The solution at a top down, like the government needs, like the solution is preparedness.
Yeah,
people.
The solution is definitely preparedness.
Like people are frankly going to live with the consequences of their choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So some deflections going on in the chat. So let me adjust
deflections.
Deflections. Yeah.
Okay.
So Holly said, yeah, because Trump did such a good job with Hurricane Maria. And again, nobody brought up Trump or Hurricane Maria. And I said earlier,
what is Maria claiming?
Hold on.
She's mine.
And so I said earlier, the federal government has dropped the ball in every single one of these responses.
To some degree in every one. Yeah.
So I didn't hear anybody even bring up Trump about it. And I did call out Bush for Katrina. So let's not make stories where they're not.
But Bernie did a good job with
Holly's
Katrina.
right. I did misappropriate her and Lila as being Democrats again. I keep doing that. I need to stop doing that. You're not Democrats. You're I believe
progressives.
Progressives, right? Yeah. But she does have a valid point that Republicans have repeatedly voted against funding FEMA to the level in which Democrats want to fund them. And at some point, that's a question you have to ask. Is part of the failures of FEMA because they're not being adequately funded because Republicans haven't wanted to fund them?
Oh, now we're back to blaming a
I'm asking the question, right? I mean, if we've acknowledged that they drop the ball every time there's a disaster,
FEMA has
is it a funding issue?
And it is the head of FEMA's responsibility to go in front of Congress and the Appropriations Committee and justify the funds that they're requesting for that year. Is it not?
Yeah.
Full stop.
Rick said the USNS Comfort could have been moved up and sailed there.
100% true.
Well, sailed where?
The Comfort could have been sailed off the coast.
Well, but again, off the coast of North Carolina is not as feasible.
Wherever it was needed.
Well, but again, most of what was hit was inland mountains in the Appalachians.
Yeah,
so it's literally, it's not close enough to the ocean where the Comfort's really.
I don't know how long.
I
don't know how long a helicopter flight is to one of the Mercy ships. I can't.
If you look at a map of where,
I think Rick is just making the point that that's an asset that could have been utilized, and it goes back to one overwhelming.
Couldn't they
point.
send some MASH units in?
Oh, yes, all kinds of stuff like that could have happened.
I would have agreed with the MASH unit.
Yeah, I mean,
I want Hawkeye and BJ Honeycutt to go there right now.
Anything
I want
maybe a little too old. For
I
that.
don't want a dude
in
in a dress stitching up my broken arm.
I want Radar O'Reilly.
I'll take Radar.
Phil,
you're advocating for meatball surgery. Really?
Meatball surgery. Yes.
Now you realize it's going to last longer than the actual disaster.
What, the meatball surgery?
No,
the series that comes out of it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I again, and the other thing they said is, well, first Paul said that there was no military there, and then you guys moved the goalpost, and there's not enough military there.
No.
The argument
listen,
at the end of the
they're
day
making a really
is
good point.
The end of the
Shut up. My God.
The end of the day, the argument is still
That's
the
why
same.
you guys are single.
The
Can't
end-
find a good man.
The end of the day, the argument is still the
You
same.
bitch too much.
There's not enough military there. Whether there is some or whether there's none, there's not enough. But whatever.
Chicka chicka boom.
Pepper said families have lived in the Appalachians for centuries. They are self-governing communities.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah, they are.
That are beneath the radar by choice. They're not self-governing. They might have
really?
like a Hatfield and McCoy way of doing things, but they still have
You
to.
ever seen the
they're
Amish
still
Mafia?
governed by the federal government.
You ever seen the Amish the Amish Mafia?
Yeah, the Carolinas are kind of a hotbed of like the Libertarian Party.
Yeah,
they're
let's see how that's worked out for them.
they're very hands off from the government.
And
very
Pepper
detached.
Pepper continued to say a contingency plan should be in place for these communities. I don't disagree with that, but I don't believe for the life of me that anybody envisioned a hurricane hitting Tampa Bay and then traveling up the Appalachian Mountains and getting all the way up to the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. I don't think anybody saw that.
Because you've got a misperception. You're envisioning this like river flowing in this path that's predetermined. It's more like a pachinko ball, man.
No, I agree
There's a
with
bing,
you,
bing, 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 bing.
but I'm just saying I don't think anybody envisioned that as something that they'd even have to consider.
Right, because it's so high up in the mountains that it
Well, and
very
it's-
rarely flood, right?
And not only is it high up in the mountains, but it's inland.
Right.
And it's way up off the
Right.
Gulf course and off the Gulf Coast. If the hurricane came in from the east, it would have dissipated down enough generally by the time it made inland, so it wouldn't have done that. And I don't think we've ever seen. I haven't seen any history that shows that this has happened before, where a big ass hurricane from the Gulf Coast, which are always bigger because of the warm water, came inland and stayed strong enough to do that much damage that far north. So this whole idea we've got to blame somebody. Okay, we can blame the response, but nobody saw this coming.
Right.
This is a 1 in 100, although we're getting a lot of those sons of bitches now, a 1 in 100 storm that nobody saw before.
Kevin.
Now, if it happens again in 5 years, then you can blame people for not being prepared.
Kevin, you ever heard of a nor'wester?
Yeah, but those are normally farther north.
But the point is that the whole East Coast has a really rough weather season. The whole East Coast gets battered. Right. They should be more prepared. The government should have their head pulled from their hind end little bit better.
I'm all for blaming Harris and Biden for whatever they're accountable
I'm
for
not
this.
even blaming
but
Harris
I'm
and
being
Biden.
honest.
I haven't heard anybody say that either.
But I'm being honest.
I don't
I'm
think
always
so.
looking for reasons to blame Harris and Biden for anything that they don't do right because they're the ruling party and they're in charge and they need to handle stuff.
See, I would rather just blame the bloated bureaucratic system.
That's very gold of you.
Yeah,
I'm
isn't it?
fine with blaming whomever needs to be blamed. But I also believe things happen throughout the concourse of our lives that nobody can be blamed for.
Sure.
That sometimes bad crap just happens you can't plan or foresee. And I think this is one of those things. I think this took a really powerful storm, a really good weather situation, not good, but a really pliable weather situation. For all these ducks had to line up in a row in the right way for this to happen the way that it did. Nobody saw this come. Nobody could have prepared for it. But that's why every state needs to have networks with other states because you don't know what's going to happen. You just don't. They need to have better plans. And that's where you can start blaming people.
Because I was just reviewing ours. We got our, what do they call it? Plans for interoperability and working with other states. And procedures and policies and how to do it.
I will throw this
They even
out
know
there.
when breakfast, lunch, and dinner are supposed to be.
The greatest plans fall apart once you make contact with the enemy.
Yeah.
So
Who said that?
I'm paraphrasing,
Okay.
but it's true. It's true. They, you can lay out plans, the plans that are in place for Cascadia. A 9.0 quake hits, and we hope those plans go off like those folks are planning. They spend a lot of time and energy trying to get them right, but only thing that we'll tell is if it occurs. Then we'll know if it works.
Kevin Nelson said, "Bring Colonel Potter in."
Which time?
Bring Colonel Potter in. Yeah, Lila said no person's to blame. I agree with Lila. I don't for the fact that they weren't better prepared. You can't. There's nobody to blame for this. This was bad juju from the onset.
Personal responsibility.
But I do believe that there is some blame to go around for the response this far after, just like there was with Bush and Katrina, just like there was with Trump and Puerto Rico. The federal government has an obligation in some of this stuff to do a better job, but they've dropped the ball consistently my entire life. I can't think of a natural disaster that they did not drop the ball on. That earthquake in the Bay Area that hit in the middle of the World Series, they screwed the pooch on that. I mean, this isn't new, and it'll still be an issue no matter who wins the next election because FEMA's underprepared and underfunded. Hold on, we're going to top of the hour.
And they spent a whole lot of money on illegal immigrants, which gave them less money to spend on victims.
We call them aliens.
I call them illegals.
Back after this, Outlaw Radio. AM, good night. See you Wednesday. Good night. Lila said the response will never be good enough. You're right, but it could be better. I mean,
it could always be better.
Could always be better. It'll never be perfect.
That's the kind of stuff, though, that shows, unfortunately, like legitimate political bias, right? Like, if you're trying to truly hold your own party accountable, then you don't have any problem stating it's not on you. Mm-hmm. But if you're so wrapped up in defending, Harris that you can't even say, God, I can't believe that she talked about her own, people in North Carolina are dying and drowning in this flood and this natural disaster. And, and she's out there talking about best wishes to the people of Palestine. Like, hello,
tone deaf.
Like tone deaf, perfect way to put that.
Yep.
So and if you can't find enough within yourself to even criticize them for the way that they're handling this, well, I mean, nobody can take you seriously. You're not having a legitimate conversation with anybody about anything. You're just bitching.
Lila said, "What you're stating on is spitting on vets for losing the war." No, it's not, because I didn't blame the people.
What the fuck is she talking about?
I didn't blame. Well, basically, what they're saying, but because you're commenting on that, it's like blaming troops for losing the war, which is not the same thing. Because I didn't talk about the people on the ground or the people that are actually doing it. I'm talking about the people that are making the plans and doing the plan. This is like blaming the DOD and the White House for losing Vietnam. Okay, it's not blaming the troops in Vietnam that lost it because they were working with what they had. And the people that are on the ground in these disaster areas are literally being shit upon by the federal government, sent into places without proper funding, proper equipment, proper coordination, proper plans. Not their fault. But the White House and the federal government, because they're the ones that coordinate it, they get the blame.
And so you can blame troops for the loss of a battle. You damn well can, because it's happened more than once.
But in this case, I'm not. In this case, I'm blaming the federal government, the coordination that happens from the states and FEMA. And God, honestly, let's end this conversation with this. God bless the poor people that go into these areas without proper funding, without proper equipment, without proper coordination, without proper time, without proper plans in place, and still bust their ass and risk their own lives to help people. Those people all deserve fucking parades and fucking vacations and parties and everything that you could possibly give them. And they'll never get enough thanks for what they do. Because at least in the military, you have a general idea what you're signing up for. Generally. Not always, but you have a general idea. I'm going to sleep in a fucking tent. I'm whatever, right?
You're volunteering to give up your freedom to fight for freedom.
Yep.
What you're doing.
These people that go into these natural disasters, they have no idea what they're walking into because they don't know what ungodforsaken natural problem is going to hit and what that's going to spell. Nobody thought that they were going to be dealing with this in Appalachia. So God bless them for doing it. Anyway, want to do football picks real quick?
Sure.
All right.
How fast can we go through them?
Well, really quick, I want to give Paul props because Paul won this week in football picks. Still one game left to go. Tomorrow night's New Orleans, Kansas City game. Paul got 11 right. I got 10. Lori got 9. Dennis and Trojo each with 8, and then Tom bringing up the rear as every good libertarian should with 7.
Falling off the back.
Here we go. We have a 3-way tie for first place overall. Me, Paul, and Dennis are all tied with first place with 49. Lori right behind with 48. Tom with 45, and the Dallas Cowboys, Trojo, in last place with 44. So
I mean, it's clearly a tight race.
It is tight.
I mean,
that's what he said.
Well, I mean, we're talking wear your track cleats so you can bust into her kind of tight.
All right, here we go. Do we have football pick music, or do you have that, Phil?
I'm still shaking my head from Paul's comment.
Okay, here we go.
Well, what it means, Phil, is that you
No, I don't need you mansplaining that.
Remember, ladies, mansplaining is when a man explains something to you in a condescending tone. All right.
Okay, chica.
All right, here, chica. Here we go. Paul, you're going to pick first.
Okay.
Thursday night game. The poor freaking Seahawks, man.
Yeah.
They get a short week and then another short week.
They're just riddled with injuries.
At least they're at home back to back as they play at home against San Francisco, who lost to Arizona today.
Yeah.
Paul, who do you got?
I'm going to actually take Seattle for one reason only, because San Francisco is the one team that has more injuries than Seattle.
Any chance we get some of our defense back for that game?
I don't know.
I'm picking San Francisco. I'm picking
fucking
Seattle.
schmuck.
I'm picking Seattle.
Good God
This
almighty.
is a 50-50 toss up to me.
No, it's not. You're not if
It
you're
really
a real
is.
Seattle fan. You're
I'm
rooting for your team.
I'm a smart guy. Tom?
Hawks.
Okay.
Real fan.
Dennis is not here. Okay. Lori?
Seattle.
Real fan.
Trojo?
Oh my God, Seattle!
It's in Seattle.
Another real fan.
Hold on, I'm just.
It's in
I'm
Seattle.
just. I'm just.
We all know you're really a Cowboys fan.
I'm reevaluating this. Seattle, we made the best player of the year. Giants, hold my beer.
That fumble recovery for the
I
touchdown is pretty
am going
amazing,
to.
though.
I'm gonna go with Seattle because they're at home.
Did you see everybody on the Giants
Oh my God!
when he fumbled the ball and the guy picked up, started running? Everybody on the Giants was just kind of standing there going,
I thought it was honestly when I looked at it, I thought he broke the plane too. I thought it was a touchdown, and then I looked at it and I was like, "Ooh, that is not."
By
a
the way,
touchdown.
San Francisco is favored in that game. By the way, Dennis picked San Fran. All right, Dennis, get in here and pick with us. All right,
we don't pick against San Diego, jerk.
Sunday morning games. Jacksonville at Chicago. Boy, Chicago looked good today. Of course, they were beating the crap out of Sisters of the Poor, but I'll pick Chicago. Tom?
Chicago and whom?
Hosting Jacksonville. Who won today?
Oh, who's hosting?
Chicago.
That means they're in Chicago at home.
I know
Okay, I'm
that.
just checking, man.
Yeah, give me
you
the
sounded
Bears.
confused.
The Bears.
I mean, the older we get, it happens more often.
Hey,
Dennis,
What?
get your ass in
Ask
here.
Lilet.
Oh, Dennis picked Chicago. Lori?
Yeah.
Chicago's favored, by the way. Lori?
Chicago.
All right. Trojo?
Yeah, Chicago.
And Paul?
Cheat down.
All right. Tom, Arizona at Green Bay.
Zona.
It's actually a tough one.
Zona.
Arizona. All right.
Yeah.
Dennis will pick when he gets around to it. Lori?
Dennis is down the tasting room.
Packers.
Right now, probably on the floor in the
Trojo?
tasting room.
Jeez.
I can see him on the camera.
Yeah.
Arizona
Packers.
at Green Bay.
Packers.
Paul?
They're in Green Bay.
And Green Bay. Dennis picked Green
I'll
Bay.
take
by the
Green
way. I got Green Bay as well. Dennis will pick first, but he won't because there's a delay. But the game is Indianapolis at Tennessee. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Michelle Caldier Shitstain Game of the Week, brought to you by the Michelle Caldier campaign. Remember, Robert Parker endorsed her. Okay,
And I'm the one that can't be unbiased.
Lori, who do you got? Indianapolis at Tennessee. Indianapolis is favored, but by 1.
Colts.
Dennis picked the Colts as well.
You could be
Trojo?
such an asset to the community. Kevin.
Yeah, let me get the horses.
All right, Paul.
What?
Indianapolis at Tennessee.
Oh.
You said you wanted to be fast. Pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah, I did. You're just really slow. Take Tennessee.
You want to be fast. Isn't that what your wife always says to you? Let's be fast. Tennessee. All right.
That's why I have that little Joe cream.
I'm taking Indianapolis.
Slows
Tom
things down a bit.
picks Indianapolis. All right. Laura, you'll pick first. Houston at New England.
Houston.
Lori picked Houston. Trojo?
It's a good pick.
Texans.
Paul?
Texans.
I got Houston. Tom?
Houston.
Dennis has got Houston. All right. Trojo, Tampa Bay at Nolans.
This could actually be a pretty decent game.
Could be.
Could be. Boy. I'm gonna go with the Bucks, the Buckums.
Paul?
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the Bucks.
Yeah, me too. Tom?
Saints.
Dennis
Said it wrong. It's the Taints.
Thinking. Lori?
Saints.
All right, we'll come back to Dennis's pick in a second. Paul, Cleveland at Philly.
Philly.
Boy, these are
Philly.
These are two teams that are going nowhere quick.
Philly.
All right, I got Philly. Tom?
Cleveland.
Dennis picked New Orleans, by the way. Tom got Cleveland. Waiting for Dennis's pick. Lori? Philadelphia hosting Cleveland.
Eagles.
And Trojo?
God, I hate to say it.
Dennis picked Philly.
I hate to say it.
Yeah, but you're going to because you were all waiting on your fucking ass. So pick.
How many says the Eagles?
Okay, good.
Dennis picked Philly as well. All right, I'll pick first. Washington at Baltimore. I haven't opined a lot of thoughts on games today because I know we're in a hurry.
We don't need to start now.
But listen, Jaden Daniels is the real fucking deal. That kid is amazing. I swear to God, amazing.
Yeah, as a guy watching this kid for the Redskins, I'm like, God damn it. Where the hell did he come from, and why are they competing all of a sudden?
I am picking Baltimore because I think they're a better team and a deeper team, but it would not surprise me at all if this is like a 35-32 or some just massive, kind of scoring output for both teams. Tom?
God, I just blanked out. Who are we picking?
Washington and Baltimore.
Jesus. Thank you, Baltimore.
That's all.
I knew who I wanted.
Dennis, he said that's a tough game. We'll come back to him. Lori, who do you got?
I've got the Redskins.
Perfect. Trojo?
Well, as a true Dallas fan, I could never pick the Redskins, so that's going to always be the Ravens.
All right, and Paul?
Baltimore.
And I'm still waiting for Dennis's pick. All right, Tom,
Hey.
the Chargers at Denver.
Oh,
Denver
Dennis
won
picks
today,
real
by the
fast
way.
on this one.
Denver won today, by the way, against Oakland.
Yeah, hey, the Giants won today against Seattle. but-
Notice I said Oakland, not Las Vegas. They're from
Right,
Oakland.
yeah. I'll take the Bolts.
Dennis just picked Baltimore for that game, and you got the Chargers. All right, Dennis, make your pick. He did the Chargers. Lori,
told you he'd pick that one fast.
Broncos.
Dennis, is your quarterback starting or is he hurt? Trojo, who do you got?
Oh my God, another one. Oh, give me Denver, I guess.
Paul.
I'm going to take the Chargers because I don't want Dennis to fuck with me while he's on the board over there on Wednesday.
Well, I want to find out if is Herbert injured or is he playing?
It doesn't matter. Be
It
a
does.
man. Pick the Chargers.
If Herbert's playing, I'm picking the Chargers. If he's not, I'm picking against them.
Last I saw, he's playing. So he played half of the last game, and I expect he's probably going to play the whole next one.
You think so? Oh, Dennis said he's playing. I'm picking the Chargers then. All right, Dennis, Pittsburgh at Las Vegas. I'll give you time. Lori, Pittsburgh at Las Vegas.
Steelers.
Trojo.
Steelers.
Paul.
Steelers.
All right, I'm picking the Raiders. I don't know why anybody likes the Steelers. They just don't play well. I know they played a good game tonight, but they're playing the Cowboys, and the Cowboys suck. Tom,
They were undefeated
Vegas,
up
baby.
until last week.
who was? But they hadn't played anybody.
No.
That offense is horrible, man.
Oh, okay.
Dennis has got Pittsburgh as well. All right, Lori, Detroit at Dallas against the Cowgirls.
I'm picking the Cowboys.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Remember, Detroit's coming off a bye, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Trojo?
Detroit lost today.
Huh? No, Detroit was off. They played. Seattle on Monday night. And they had this week off.
You're right. You're right.
My entire fantasy team lost because I had so many freaking Lions on it. Trojo?
Oh, Dallas. I mean, a true fan.
Paul?
Detroit.
Yeah, I got Detroit as well. Tom?
Sorry, Tro. Detroit.
And Dennis has not answered it yet. We'll come back to him. Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, Trojo.
Asshole.
Atlanta at Carolina.
God, this could actually be a very exciting game. I mean, I watched Atlanta.
Like sex with a dyke. Yeah,
Dennis picked Detroit, by the way. Paul, Atlanta at Carolina.
Atlanta.
I got Atlanta as well. Tom?
Atlanta.
Them birds. Waiting for Dennis is pick Atlanta at Carolina. Lori?
The Falcons.
All right, Paul, you will pick first on this one.
All right.
Another maybe shit stain game of the week. Again, brought to you by the Michelle Caldier campaign. A vote for Michelle is a vote for shit stain. Paul, Cincinnati at the Giants.
Based on the way Cincinnati's been playing,
they did score a bunch of points today against Baltimore.
35 to 5 touchdowns, and almost 400 yards passing for Burrows today.
Yeah.
They actually put up a damn good fight against the Ravens today.
Dennis picked Atlanta, by the way.
you know what? Give me the Giants.
All right, I'm picking Cincinnati. Again, I have a bias for Cincinnati because of my dad and Joe Burrow. So, Tom,
Bengals.
Dennis is going to pick Lori.
Bengals.
Trojo.
Yeah, Bengals.
All right. I'll pick first. Buffalo at the Jets. This game is hard to pick because we don't know if Josh Allen got a concussion today or not. And there's a big, he didn't get evaluated for one on the field. And there's a big kerfuffle about it. I'm still going to pick Buffalo because Aaron Rodgers did get hurt today. And I don't even know if he's going to play. And I don't know how serious the injury is or anything. Tom, who do you got?
I didn't know about Rodgers. I'll take Buffalo with that in mind.
All right, Dennis. Is okay. Lori, Buffalo at the Jets.
Buffalo.
Dennis picked Buffalo. So did Lori. Trojo.
I'm gonna go with
the black quarterback.
I'm sorry. Who are they playing?
Buffalo and the Jets.
I'm gonna go with Buffalo. But I was watching that Buffalo game. I could have sworn I saw Josh Allen get evaluated. He did come out of the game and go into the blue tent for a moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm going to take Buffalo.
All right. Double downs. Tom, we'll start with you. What's your double down?
Hang on. I'm going to come peek over your shoulder.
Okay. Dennis, put your double down in chat. Lori, do you know your double down?
Yeah. Ravens.
Quote the Raven nevermore. All right. Trojo?
Texans.
Paul?
Hawks.
I got the Texans as well.
Philly.
Tom has got Philly. And Dennis has the Chargers. All right, that concludes the picks. Let's do some parting shots and get out of here. Dennis, you have any parting shots? Put them in the chat. Holly said, Kevin loves being called daddy. Isn't that right? No, it's not right. I don't know why you don't respect my preferred non-pronouns, my non-preferred pronouns. How about that? You want me to respect your pronoun, you got to respect the pronouns I don't want. How's that? Phil, parting shots.
Shona Tova.
What?
Happy New Year.
Oh,
in Israel.
Shabbat.
Is it? Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
Rosh Hashanah.
God, can you believe it's been just over a year since what happened over there? And
It hasn't been just over a year. It's a year tomorrow.
was it the 7th? I thought it was the 4th.
7th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
tomorrow.
right. Lori, parting shots.
30 days, people.
Daddy is in a pronoun.
Vote
She
yes,
said. That's
pay
actually
less.
correct. Yeah.
Well, yes, pay less. Yes.
Trojo, parting shots.
Hakuna Matata.
What a wonderful phrase. Yeah. Ain't no passing phase.
What's the
means
motto?
no worries for the rest of your days.
It's
problem free philosophy.
Jesus fucking Christ.
We
Shut
hate
that
the
off.
Cowboys.
Kill it.
All right, Tom.
You done?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
Phil, you'll appreciate this because you're a radio
Hey, would
guy.
you please let Tom?
You're like a ham
give
radio
us-
guy. I was in we had a CB radio in my car once. We went up to Canada.
Hold on, everybody wait. Let Kevin finish talking.
We were cruising around Vancouver, and we got on the radio and we got on their trucker channel, and we only had to say one phrase to make people want to hunt us down. We just said "God fuck the Queen," and they wanted to find us. It's true. Shut up. Fuck all of you. I got to listen to Tom's stories about alcohol, Paul's stories about raising horses on a farm and replacing fences, Trojo's reliving the glory days from 1995 when the Cowboys were worth a fuck, Lori talking about all of her tax bullshit, and Dennis, all he wants to talk about is weed, and I tell one goddamn story about driving around in Vancouver, and you guys are all like, fuck you all!
Yeah, because we do it when before it's 11 o'clock.
Go ahead, Tom. What's your parting shot?
Damn.
Fuck all of you. Every last one of you.
October
God.
26th.
Really shows the diversity of this word.
Come on, Tom.
Probably haven't seen
Hurry
that
up. We're after 11. They don't want to be late. I was ready to do picks early, but you guys kept fucking talking.
Jesus, it is a talk show.
Fucking Energizer
Damn it,
Bunny.
man.
Still going.
October 26th.
Yes.
Will be a trunk or treat out in front of the Town Square Mall. And then
Is Black Ring Spirits doing a trunk?
We're not. We're going to have candy inside and stuff. So people can come in from the trunk or treat
Which
and
smells
visit.
suspiciously like
And
whiskey.
visit the now hang on, we're getting there.
Oh,
and
okay.
visit the businesses. But all of the businesses inside the mall decided we were going to do a Halloween thing on Halloween. So if you're over the age of 21, come on by and we'll have some taste set up for the adults, and we'll have candy for the kids.
Can you do some like some gummy bears like soaked in some of your alcohol? Could you do that?
Or gummy bears with
I'm-
THC. Kevin would love to try one.
I'm not going to try one of
That'd
those.
be fun. I'm not
I can't
going to
believe you guys
have.
made me swear. My God.
Yeah, I made you. Yeah. I'm not going to have any of my clear liquors ready to go by Halloween, I don't think, because like a vodka soaked gummy bear or a gin soaked gummy bear, delicious. I just won't have them.
Making the Jello shots with your alcohol?
I've made Jello shots. It's kind of hard to have a distiller make Jello shots for you because I tend to pour a little heavy, and alcohol does break down the pectin and gelatin.
You should do some
You hear
Jello
that, Kevin?
shots.
Don't drink too much of his whiskey. It'll affect your pectin.
That's my pectin. My
or
pectin's
your
a little out of
gelatin
use.
or any of the other tins.
My pectin's very neglected.
That's what she
you
said.
should make some in
Definitely jiggly.
syringes, Tom, for Halloween. You should make some in
Oh,
syringes.
yeah. I mean that's a packaging expense. Syringes. and
Kevin's
stuff.
offering to pay for it.
Sell them. I'm not saying give them away. Sell them.
No.
Any other parting shots for you, my friend?
No. Come and have a shot on Halloween.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Paul, parting shots for you.
No,
No,
we're good.
That's it.
Yeah, we're good.
Can I ask you a question then?
Fuck no.
Because you weren't here and we talked about it before. What did you think of the Huskies beating J. Andrew Kennedy's weenie ass Wolverines?
Signature win.
Yeah.
Yeah, signature win. It was great to see. I loved seeing them, even though it didn't have anything to do with last year and the national championship game, two totally different administrations and teams and everything. Didn't matter. I was happy for the team and the coach, Deadfish, because he's a new coach. So that's why I said definitely a signature win. When you're unranked and you beat the number 10 team in the nation.
Yeah. Especially the way they did it.
Yeah.
I mean,
convincingly.
Yeah. Holly said that she's coming by Black Green to get her grown-up treat. Tom, can you please confirm that she's real and exists? Because none of us have seen her. She's kind of like Bigfoot. We hear stories about her, but we've never seen her in the wild.
Hold, okay. Nope. Time out. I posted a picture 2 weeks ago in the chat room for you, and I don't think you got a chance to see it. Yeah, for Kevin. And it was about Bigfoot because I was
Is it your phone? Can you show me?
I asked the question because we've joked around. We did the Bigfoot promo and everything, and so I reached out to you and I asked the question, Kevin. Do you believe that government agencies are in the business of basically bloviating bullshit?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
What kind of bullshit do they peddle?
Well, it would depend upon the agency, but if this is anything that involves tourism, then they would certainly talk about Bigfoot.
Well, they didn't actually talk about Bigfoot.
But I think government agencies bloviate and a whole bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, they actually
Have you ever
put
seen?
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
They put up signage in an area outside of Yellowstone, not Yellowstone, it's to the north in Montana. Basically warning people that there were a lot of Sasquatch encounters in the area and telling people where to go and where to not go, and that if they encounter one, to take pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was from the National Parks Department.
I just think it's fun. I mean, they think it's fun. They think it's cute and witty. You know what I related to?
Did you know the Washington State Parks Department has one on film?
Did you know the CDC has on their website an emergency plan for the event of a zombie outbreak?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of fun.
It would happen.
Listen,
there is a virus right now that could actually create a zombie-like outbreak.
Well,
do you know what that is? If it ever became airborne,
there's
rabies.
There's a virus that makes bees into zombies too, but it would have to jump species and do.
Is there a virus that makes women make poor life choices? Because I really could use it.
There is.
Yeah, it's called ethanol.
Yeah. Okay.
I was going to say
Chloroform.
progressivism, but
Chloroform.
We'll trade. We'll share that one actually.
Bad choices kill their children. Yeah.
The story you brought up, you know what it reminds me of? I was in Bremerton today.
Oh no.
And I drove past the Bremerton Police Department that's down there on Burwell, and they have this huge stainless steel art piece out in front of the police station.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I thought
on Burwell.
Yeah.
A friend of mine is the sculptor that made that.
So I'm not knocking the sculptor.
Okay.
But why do you need a giant, huge stainless steel piece of art in front of the police department?
Because the government mandated
Hold
it.
on. Why are you spending tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars on a piece of artwork that doesn't need to be there, that doesn't contribute to the mission of the taxpayer-funded agency?
Well, Phil already told you why, and it's the truth.
No,
there's
you're right,
there's
Drew.
a specific percentage of the budget on the building that must be spent on public art.
But again,
because the legislature said so.
So dumb.
If you go down to the Port Orchard waterfront and go out to the dock where the foot ferry is, there's a big stainless steel sculpture above the dock that leads out to the foot ferries. That big stainless steel sculpture, same guy.
Yeah. I'm not knocking the sculptor at all.
Right. No, I
just,
but
when we
it's
talk
all,
about government spending and how much they spend and how much all these projects cost and all the extra bells and whistles they put in every building, think of how much money they would save if we weren't allowing them to just go get some massively expensive piece of artwork to put out in front of the police station that doesn't even matter. Like, we're not talking about a tourist area where artwork
I'm
makes
gonna
sense.
pack my stuff up.
Anyway, all right.
The artwork, man.
My party.
That's a big conversation that we should save.
It
for
is a
show or
legitimate
whatever.
conversation.
But I think arts are important to a community.
I do, but I don't think they need to have it on every project. Nobody's going onto Burwell to look at artwork.
Like I said,
we're stuck in stop and go traffic. I mean,
that's
fisherman statue.
That's a
downtown
conversation for like a whole show. Or it
Sons of
could be.
bitches. Okay. My parting shot is we are less than a month from the election. Please go on to the elections website, verify that you are registered, double check and make sure that you're registered, that you'll get your ballot, that all things are good to go, and then vote. I don't care who you vote for, unless it's for Michelle Caldier, then it's a waste of a vote. But otherwise, get out and vote. Do the right thing. Support your elections and make your voice heard. And if not, then be quiet. All right? We'll see y'all Wednesday, 7 o'clock. This is the Outlaw Radio Network.